All right, I'd like to bring this business meeting of Urbana School District 116 to order. Roll call, please.
Member Hasanadka,
Here.
Member Hall,
Here.
Member Exum is joining us by phone.
Tori, roll call.
Oh, I did it early, I'm sorry. Vice President Exum, sorry. Member Orr,
Here.
Member Ogalski,
Here.
Member Carter is here, and President Pulaski.
Here, we do have a request for a modification, quick modification to tonight's agenda. We'd like to move accommodations and recognitions and action item 11.5 administrative personnel items up to before citizen statements to allow those individuals to get to other commitments. Is there any objection to that from the board?
No.
Okay, hearing none, let's move on to accommodations and recognitions. We have Karen Hollett, the teacher at the Urbana Middle School, has gotten a $1,000 grant from Epsilon Delta and was nominated by one of the students that belong to the fraternity. Is Karen present? No. Okay, we also would like to acknowledge our National Board Certified Teachers. It's a huge time commitment on the faculty who work hard in professional development to improve their skills and bring those and keep those skills in the district. So Julie Erlinger is going to announce our new and renewed National Board Certified Teachers.
Thank you, Paul. I appreciate that. Yes, National Board Certified Teaching is a rigorous process. It's professional development that's aimed in improving teaching and student learning. And we appreciate the support that Urbana School District 116 is giving. And tonight, we're very proud and excited to recognize 2 newly certified teachers this year and 4 renewed certified teachers this year. We also have in attendance some other National Board Certified teachers who've come to support as well. So maybe I'll ask if the other National Board teachers that are district-wide would stand here so we can recognize them. Woo! I want to also recognize that Yvonne Smith is a wonderful support for us as our district administrator, and she's here as well. Our 2 new certified teachers this year are Katie Plotner at Leal. You want them to come?
Come from behind the camera, Katie. We can't see you.
Am I supposed to be handing this out, or what am I supposed to? They don't need it back this week. You can have it temporarily. You can see it. And I think Amanda Lappin is not here, but she is a teacher at Dr. King's School. I know I saw Michelle Johnson, who is newly renewed. And Amanda Perez-Rosser is here. Come on up. Michelle is at Thomas Paine, and Amanda is at UHS. And we have 2 others that I don't think are here, Kevin Kennedy at UHS and Nick Stillwell at UHS.
All right.
That is all. Thank you for recognizing them, and thank you again for the support for National Board and USD 116.
Would you guys be interested in Catherine's not here, like taking your plaques and going out, and John can take a quick photo of the people here tonight? Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Guys.
Next up is action item 11.5, administrative personnel items. So, Angie.
Sorry, I was so excited about the spread back there that I'm like, got to pull up my document. All right, let's see. Mr. Guzman, Ms. Kearns, Ms. Hines, would you maybe join us at the table, please?
We're digging the colors.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Over the past 5 years, there have been 3 different leaders at Urbana High School, in addition to no designated principal during the 2020-21 school year. Due to several concerns, it was announced to staff, students, and families that there would be administrative changes at Urbana High School for the 23-24 school year. In February, the 3 high school administrative positions were posted. The Human Resources Department then sent out the UHS Administrator Search Committee interest form, and there were 58 responses sharing input. Some of the common themes from the respondents were that UHS needed experienced administrators and ones who were familiar with the Urbana community. Other frequent responses included attention to culture and climate for student learning, issues surrounding student safety, and improving low staff morale and staff retention. When the position was posted and advertised on a national level, there were still not many applicants, which has been the trend for the past 3 years it has been posted. I have personally reached out to candidates talking about the principal position and encouraging folks to apply. Some applied and some did not. During the past 10 weeks, we have had 8 applicants for UHS principal. Based on a number of factors that are confidential HR matters, 3 applicants were eligible to be interviewed. All staff, students, and community members who volunteered to participate in the interview process were accepted to participate. The interview committees had the difficult decision to recommend candidates now or recommend to keep the high school administrative positions posted for a longer period of time in hopes of drawing more candidates. On Monday, April 3rd, the Level 1 Interview Committee interviewed 3 principal candidates. The Level 1 Interview Committee recommended that 2 of the principal candidates move on to the Level 2 interviews on Wednesday, April 5th. The Level 2 Committee recommended that the same 2 candidates move on to the Level 3 Committee interview. Mr. Jesse Guzman was selected as the most outstanding candidate in all 3 committees, and the district administration is recommending his hire to the Board of Education effective July 1, 2023. Mr. Guzman is currently known by families, staff, and the community as principal at Jefferson Middle School in Champaign Unit 4. Mr. Guzman has served as the principal since July 1, 2018. Previously, Mr. Guzman served as the associate principal, Unit 4 Middle School Summer School principal, and assistant principal at Jefferson Middle School since 2014. Mr. Guzman has 9 years of administrative experience at the secondary level. Before becoming an administrator, Mr. Guzman served as an 8th grade social studies at Edison Middle School for 9 years. He has been in the Urbana-Champaign community since 2005. Mr. Guzman holds a Bachelor's of Arts in Secondary Education with a concentration in Social Studies from St. Louis University. He earned a Master of Science in Educational Administration from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign in May 2014 and completed his superintendent endorsement in May 2019 from the University of Illinois. Since the candidate pool for UHS was relatively small, the decision to also interview for assistant principal positions occurred at the same time. This was an important consideration due to the shortage of administrative applicants in our area. As an aside, there were 0 internal applicants, meaning district-wide, for the principal or assistant principal positions at Urbana High School. There were 8 applicants for UHS assistant principal openings, many of whom applied for the principal position in the district as well. Out of the 8 candidates, 2 of the candidates were eligible to be interviewed, which is also confidential HR information. The committees again had a difficult decision in recommending candidates to be hired or keeping the positions posted longer in hope of getting additional candidates. The Level 1 and Level 2 interview committees did have enough support to recommend the hiring of the 2 assistant principal candidates. Ms. Jessica Hines began her educational career in 2005 teaching English language arts, social studies, and AVID in Kankakee. Ms. Hines served as a teacher and AVID coordinator for 8 years, again in Kankakee. In August 2013, Ms. Hines accepted an English language arts and AVID position in Champaign Unit 4, specifically at Jefferson Middle School. Ms. Hines accepted her first administrative position, Dean of Students, again at Jefferson, in August of 2016. Ms. Hines was promoted to assistant principal in 2018 and then associate principal in 2020 at the same school. Ms. Hines holds a bachelor's degree in elementary education from Illinois State University and a master's degree in educational leadership and administration from the University of Illinois. Ms. Hines is also a 2001 Golden Apple Scholar and currently works with the Golden Apple Foundation, growing and mentoring future educators. Ms. Melissa Kearns began her career in education as a 7th grade science teacher at Urbana Middle School, where she served for 2 years. Ms. Kearns then accepted a position outside of education, where she pursued writing grants and coordinating their programming for Champaign County Youth for Rosecrans. Returning to education, Ms. Kearns joined Unit 4 schools, serving as an elementary teacher at Bottonfield Elementary, instructional coach at Garden Hills Elementary, and magnet site coordinator also at Garden Hills. Following her elementary experiences, Ms. Kearns was then selected as assistant principal at Jefferson Middle School in 2020, a position she has held for 3 years. Ms. Kearns holds an associate's degree in elementary education from Parkland College, a bachelor's degree also in elementary education from Eastern Illinois University. Ms. Kearns holds 2 master's degrees, one in curriculum and instruction from American College of Education and another in educational leadership, also from the American College of Education. On a personal note, Ms. Kearns is a 2004 graduate from Urbana High School. The district administrative team is recommending Ms. Hines and Ms. Kearns to serve as assistant principals at Urbana High School effective July 1, 2023. Although the candidate pool was small, it does not diminish the excitement our district has to hire experienced administrators with longevity in the community and a commitment to our students, staff, and families. So it's a pleasure to bring these recommendations to the board for approval.
Right. Thank you. Before we, I guess, get started on voting, I was reminded we need to approve the agenda first as amended. So quickly, is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Is there a motion to bring the administrative personnel items to the floor?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Member Hassanadka?
Yes.
Member Hall?
Yes.
Member Orr?
Yes.
Member Ogalski?
Yes.
Member Carter votes yes. Vice President Exum?
Yes.
And President Pulaski?
Yes. Welcome to Urbana.
Congratulations.
Yay.
Can you say,
Absolutely.
It has to be green.
Pull
all
it
right.
closer.
60? Is that good? Right there? Okay. First of all, I would just like to thank the board, and in particular Dr. Ivory Tatum and the exec team for this opportunity. It is an honor and a pleasure to serve as the next principal of Urbana High School. Together with students, staff, and families, we're going to accomplish great things, and we will make sure all our students are college and career ready going forward. Muchas gracias por esta oportunidad. Yo soy orgulloso para ser el próximo director de Urbana High School, y también juntos vamos a hacer cosas magníficas por todos en esta comunidad.
I would also like to thank the Board of Education and the exec team for this phenomenal opportunity. I am beyond excited to work with the students, staff, and families in this amazing community. I'm looking forward to the upcoming school year, and I'm beyond excited.
Thank you.
And that was Jessica Hines. I guess just to have a name. No. Just to have a name with a face on the recommendations. And this is
I'm
Melissa
Melissa.
Kearns.
Hi, everyone. I'm the alumni. I just want to echo what Mr. Guzman and Ms. Hines said about being so excited to be here. As an alumni, I'm super excited to return back to roots to help grow a school that I actually derive from. So I can't say it enough. Thank you for this opportunity to serve in this district. We will make Urbana proud, and we will continue the trend of making Urbana better together, and we're proud of you. So let's go.
All right. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank the audience for their patience in the
Take some food on your way out.
and adjusting the agenda. Oh. Sorry, Maria. I forgot that.
Ms. Elvire? On Monday, April 10th, the incoming Executive Director of Student Services, Beth Ladd, who's also here tonight, hosted interviews for the Special Education Administrator opening. The Level 1 interview team was made up of staff members, parents, and administrators. There were 3 highly qualified candidates who applied and were also interviewed. The Level 1 interview committee strongly recommended one candidate to move forward to a Level 2 interview with the district administrative team on Friday, April 14th. Both Level 1 and Level 2 interview committees have strongly recommended that Ms. Maria Elvire serve the district in this leadership position effective July 1, 2023. Ms. Maria Elvire has a career in special education that spans 22 years, serving students in multiple roles at both the elementary and secondary levels and in both alternative and public schools in Illinois. Ms. Elvire has experience working in McHenry, North Chicago, and Lake Villa. Or Lake Vila. I don't know how to say that. I'm not from Chicago. Ms. Elvire served as a special education teacher before transitioning to a supervisory role at a community-based residential program that partnered with the local school district. Ms. Elvire then was promoted to the role of special education coordinator at McHenry High School District. Ms. Elvire relocated to the Urbana community in 2018 and has served as associate principal at Urbana Middle School for the last 5 years. Ms. Elvire earned a Bachelor of Science degree at Southern Illinois University and 2 master's degrees. One of her master's is in elementary education from Roosevelt, and the other master's is in administration and leadership from Northeastern. In addition, Ms. Elvire holds an endorsement as a learning behavior specialist from St. Francis University. It is our strong and excited recommendation to the board to approve Ms. Elvire as the incoming special education administrator effective July 1st. So that will I have to vote, but yeah,
Well,
and then we'll clap.
I think technically we already voted because we moved the entire slate of,
You didn't
so-
even have to come. Yeah.
But so thank you for your service to the district, and thank you for continuing to serve in this role.
Oh.
Your mic.
Thank you so much to the board. I'm really, really excited to be returning to special education. I'm excited about improving student outcomes. I'm excited about collaborating with families, and I'm excited about supporting and retaining our really high quality teachers. So I'm excited to be here. I'm grateful to you all. I look forward to digging in.
Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you. All right. Again. Next up is citizen statements. So thank you for your patience. First citizen statement up tonight is Kay Bell and Jennifer Hickson.
There we go. Now you can hear me. I do have a good teacher voice, however. Good evening, and thank you for allowing us time to speak tonight. My name is Kay Bell, and I'm a former ESL teacher in Urbana School District. And this is Jennifer Hickson, also former ESL teacher and director of the Urbana School Multicultural Program. Both of us are now retired. And it is with a heavy heart that we share with you that last October 16th, Eunice Weech passed away. She was a former faculty member of Urbana Schools. We would like to share a little of her life with you tonight because she touched the lives of so many Urbana students. Today, ironically, would have been her 81st birthday. Born in 1942 in North Carolina to a working class family, Eunice managed to attend college and attain a degree in library science, get married, and moved to Urbana in the 1960s with her husband, Terry. They enrolled in graduate studies at the University of Illinois, and after graduating, they lived in Iowa and Mississippi for a while. They moved back to Urbana when Terry took a position at the University of Illinois, and Eunice took the position of grade school teacher at Prairie School around 1980. She then moved on to become librarian at the Hayes Martin Luther King Schools, eventually becoming the head librarian for Urbana School District 116 until her retirement in 2002, thus fulfilling her dream of being a librarian. During her tenure as teacher and teaching librarian, Eunice espoused children's literacy wholeheartedly, encouraging the youth of Urbana to read for pleasure as well as for research. I do believe Eunice's happiest times are when she was seated in her special chair, book in hand, reading wonderful stories to children. She especially loved fairy tales and established an enviable collection of fairy tales from around the world. I'm sorry, I'm very emotional. Supporting the multicultural population of King School prior to her retirement. Eunice had many interests and was passionate about them all. She was an avid gardener and can be evidenced by the yard at her former residence at the corner of Orchard and Pennsylvania, where many passersby stopped to admire her springtime blooming azaleas and rhododendrons. She was an avid reader, a frequent visitor and supporter of the Urbana Free Library. She also reviewed children's books for the school library journal and especially enjoyed reviewing books published for children from other countries. Eunice was also a sewer and hosted weekly meeting of a group of retired teachers who quilted together, made hundreds of dresses for girls' orphanage schools in Zambia, and fidget lap quilts for Alzheimer's patients in the Champaign-Urbana area. She leaves behind many original handmade, embroidered, and quilted items. Eunice supported many charities and foundations, animal groups, underserved world populations, local political groups, libraries, refugees, and public broadcasting. She was a generous and kind-hearted person. That Eunice loved cats was evidenced by her collection of cat books, especially vintage Puss in Boots books, which combined her love of fairy tales with her love of cats. She also had an extensive collection of cat memorabilia from around the world, many collected from her global travels. Eunice was also well informed about the political situations from the local politics of Urbana, the state politics of Illinois, to the politics of the national scene, never missing a local, state, or national primary or election day. She never forced any opinions on anyone, but was always ready to share hers when asked. As I collected money for Eunice's memorial, I received many cards from former colleagues. Many of them wrote a few words about Eunice, all of them agreeing that Eunice was a gentle soul, a kind person, a wise woman, a possessor of quiet sense of humor, and a good friend. Many favorite memories were shared, especially about retirement party skits, but mostly how she was such a presence in our lives at King School. Eunice is survived by her husband of almost 60 years, Terry, who has recently moved to Stanton, Virginia, where Eunice's sister Brenda lives with her husband, Tim. It is our honor to have donated the amount of $2,500 to the Urbana School District to be given to the King School Library Memorial Fund in honor of the life of our friend and colleague, Eunice Weech. Thank you.
I'm going to add a little bit. I remember Eunice as a good friend to me, Urbana staff, and students. She really used the library to serve the King students and staff. We had neighborhood students who hadn't traveled much and international students who didn't speak English. Eunice gathered objects from around the world so that our neighborhood kids could understand their classmates better. And she gathered all sorts of stuff so that teachers could use it to teach science and social studies in a hands-on manner that benefited everybody, but especially kids who didn't speak English and needed help understanding even basic vocabulary. It was more work keeping track of all that stuff, but Eunice saw the benefit of hands-on learning and shared resources. In fact, when teachers wanted to make their limited classroom budgets go further, they bought multiple copies of books, and Eunice cataloged them and put them in the library workroom so that we could pool all our resources. Working with Eunice, whether it was with the quilting group or the school, was a pleasure. We all felt that Eunice would be very pleased to have our memories of her be turned to further the education of Urbana kids.
Sorry, thank you so much. I can't think of a more appropriate way to honor her memory. So thank you so much. Next up, again, is Jennifer Hickson for the Wiley Committee statement. No.
The second reason I came tonight was that I am concerned about the setup and charge of the Wiley Site Facilities Committee because of what I heard at the board meeting when the committee was set up. Should there be more community members or more staff members? The superintendent said that the principals of the elementary buildings and the Urbana Middle School must be on the committee to ensure that the staff of those buildings are informed. I am concerned that a stacked deck is being set up to minimize Wiley voices. Let's review your decisions that have brought us to this point. February, decision to close Wiley to do the asbestos abatement. The community is informed that Wiley may not reopen as a neighborhood elementary school. Use of the word may effectively shuts down state-required discussion. Community input was ignored. March, teachers are assigned to positions in the other 5 buildings, not relocated for a short time, reassigned. I've taught at schools that received reassigned teachers. In that reassignment, there is one thing for certain. The principal, the teachers, and the families of that building will demand that the new staff become a real part of that community, because to effectively teach and support students and families, the staff must work together as a unit. Divided loyalties will interfere with high levels of student achievement and family satisfaction. Wiley input was ignored. March, the principal is assigned to another building, another school. We know that that principal must put all her energies on the achievement of the students in that new school. The former principal of Wiley must be fully involved emotionally and intellectually in this school for the same reason as above. And again, Wiley input was ignored. March, again, students were assigned to new elementary schools. What do parents do? Every year is important for learning. They want their children to have the best education possible during this year. They will have to support them in bonding to their new classmates and teachers. Concentrating too much on the process of reopening Wiley may bring unwanted angst to their children's experience and negatively impact their growth and learning. But this family input was ignored. So no matter how many Wiley, quote unquote, representatives are put on this committee, they are really tokens. Tokens, just like African Americans who were placed on public committees in cities where the new highway bisected the African American neighborhood or the landfill was placed there anyway. Because in those situations, the decision was made elsewhere by others who wielded more power. And we know how this goes. Use of the building site will be discussed at cabinet meetings and budget meetings and other district meetings. The present-day Wiley families will be the only people affected by the decisions who will not have a representative with access to any of those in-house meetings. If you decide to go ahead with its plan to close Wiley and disperse its staff and families, the very least you can do to make this a somewhat more level playing field is to appoint and pay a retired Wiley staff member chosen by the present Wiley community to be their voice at the table. This person must be invited to all meetings where the principals of the other schools will be. If there is a meeting that even one of those principals will attend and the topic of the Wiley site will be discussed, this person should also attend. This person will need the means to provide information and collect input from interested former Wiley staff and families. Without at least this small acknowledgement of the obstacles that the district has deliberately placed in the way of the Wiley families, the committee set up by Urbana District 116 will be a prime example of the deliberate gagging and subsequent tokenism of a culturally and economically diverse group in the center of our community. Since I wrote this, I have seen the proposed makeup of the committee. Wow, it seems like out-and-out silencing. Before this gets underway, please address all of these concerns.
Thank you very much. Next up is Yulia Baryshnikov.
hear me? Is it recorded? Is it recorded? Very good. Oh no, it's not ever. Okay, so yeah, I will be talking about the Wiley Committee. So why did you do it? Why you're assembling that? The goal is clear, to give legitimacy to a decision. You made a decision, you want to sell it. But guys, really, this is the way to sell it? The committee will be selected with transparency of North Korean, parliament. So people can submit their candidates and candidacy, and you select them. The Foxes designing the committee for hen house. Not to mention, of course, how it is formed. The parents from Wiley, 2. Teachers from Wiley, 2. The total number of people not reporting directly to Dr. Ivory Tatum is 21 out of 55. And of course, on top of this 55, you have members of the board, other people who, obviously, Dr. Ivory Tatum will be on the committee. So it is a fraction. Tokenism is not even the word. The committee is deciding the fate of Wiley School. All the other schools are invited. Why? Well, because other schools' fate will be decided? No. It's just verbiage, just verbal folk created, again, to cover the decision which is already made. You want to borrow a lot of money, you want to distribute it among different people, and that's how you do it, that's how you provide the legitimacy of it. It will not work. You tried it before. You went through this, charade of this equity audit. By the way, we all expect the trepidation of what remarkable audit it will be. You saw this dual language fiasco, which we all, again, went with this decision of administration until you realize that you will be not invited to the best party in Lille district. So all of that, you're trying to do it again. You rubber stamp the decision of the administration without giving a modicum of thought of what the community wants. And I understand. Community is sort of okay with how mismanaged the district is. The community is okay with, like intimidating the parents, with pressuring the teachers. All of it, you were re-elected, you were put in the place, sort of people seem to be okay with that. But you yourself, how you live with it? So again, you'll see another fiasco. You'll see another unhappy teachers. The principal who built a school for minorities, successful school, who went from D grade in the state board, from the State Board of Education, to B grade, which was improved. So this principal was kicked out. By the way, remember that this principal, which made his school, took the school from B grade to D grade, he was promoted to the safe sinecure of whatever post he is now taking in the district. The fiasco of the high school, which was, again, you rubber stamp the decision of the board. You selected who knows what, and just to have to again replace this principal, just barely 2 years and this tenure. Guys, what you're doing, you're ruining the district, you're ruining the town. The town's future will be populated by the children which are going through the schools now, and you're denying them their education. That's what they're doing. Think about it. Again, seems to be community seems to be tolerating it, but how you can sleep with yourself? How this think of yourselves as moral people when you do it to the district? That I don't know.
Thank you, Mr. Brushkoff. Emily Cohen.
Hello, my name's Emily Cohen, and I'm a student at the University of Illinois, and I'm one of the co-founders of the Social Justice Initiative, which is a registered student organization on campus. And I'm reading a statement from Ruth Kantorowicz. Dear members of the board, first I would like to thank you for your service on the Board of Education. Thank you for your time and hard work. It is very much appreciated. About tonight's meeting, please listen to the Wiley parents and the large Urbana community that supports them. They are not honestly represented on the Wiley Facilities Planning Committee. President Pulaski, as this committee is a board committee, you have the power to decide on the makeup of the subcommittee. Section 2-150 of the Board Policy Manual states, the board president makes all board committee appointments unless specifically stated otherwise. Board committee meetings shall comply with the Open Meetings Act. A board committee may not take final action on behalf of the board. It may only make recommendations to the board. Please note that the charge of this committee is faulty and will lead to bad decisions. If we want to make a decision on what is best for the district, we should consider all 6 elementary schools, not only Wiley. That is because if the district decides it needs/wants a specialized school along with 5 neighborhood schools, then Wiley may not be a good choice for the specialized school. For example, if Urbana wants a DL school, then Wiley is way too small. It was already determined at length that the Spanish DL needs more than 3-strand school. Thus, DPW or Yankee Ridge are the appropriate choices to house it. The board also determined already that the district does not need another school or more classrooms, so doubling the size of Wiley to fit in the DL program is wasteful, expensive, and not in the best interest of the district. Thomas Paine is also a better location for a specialized school since most of its population is already bused, so using Thomas Paine would not create a lot more busing. The administration is trying to argue that Wiley has lower attendance, as shown in the document for the upcoming Board of Education meeting, and therefore should be the target for closing. This is a false argument, since attendance can be fixed with redistricting. In fact, Yankee Ridge has lower attendance, but it is being hidden using the overflow from DPW. President Pulaski, please remember that years ago you said that the reason you ran for the board was because the district wanted to close Yankee Ridge and you wanted to fight it. Yankee Ridge has been protected since then. What about Wiley? Thank you.
Well, thank you. Next up is Shamara Vega.
Hello everyone, I am also a student at the University of Illinois, and I am also a co-founder of the Social Justice Initiative RSO. And I'm also reading a statement. So, what has changed, Board President Paul Pulowski? Why is it not okay for your neighborhood school to be closed, but it is for other families? Let's stop the deception. This is not about the abatement. In post-colonial theory, social justice, and critical race theory, actions like this are titled othering. Othering, in its simplest explanation, is when a white person separates themselves from those people who are minoritized, oppressed, and typically belong to a vulnerable population. Board President Paul Pulowski, you even formed a group similar to Wiley Strong Better Together. Are you separating your experience from that of the Wiley community? You had time to organize and impact the outcome of the decision. Why would you, as a board president, not provide for the same experience for the Wiley community? Some could make an argument that it is white privilege, systemic racism, implicit bias, and unequal power distribution, which allows for the needs and voices of the 70+% of minoritized and 80+% low-income students and families at Wiley to be easily dismissed and ignored. This is a brief excerpt to consider. Neither critical race nor post-colonial theory can be understood apart from histories of anti-racist and anti-colonial political struggles. But while their specific histories may differ, what critical race and post-colonial theories share in common is the fact that they emerged out of and represent intellectual challenges to context of racial oppression. While we might often think of race in terms of individual bodies and racism as purely about individual prejudices, critical race and post-colonial scholars help show that race and racism are intricate parts of social history and the larger social order. Even when individual prejudices wane, racial inequality can perpetuate itself through larger social systems like education, housing, healthcare, and wealth/income. It is not too late, Urbana School Board. We can undo the decision to close Wiley this fall and wait until a strategic plan and facilities committee recommendations are completed. The citizens of Wiley call on the board to take action supports the mission of the school district. The mission of Urbana School District 116, a multicultural community committed to educational excellence, is to ensure that all learners acquire knowledge, develop skills, and build character to achieve personal greatness and help create a better global society by providing innovative, comprehensive programs, respecting individual learning styles and cultural differences, and fostering caring and nurturing relationships while engaging each student, every family, and the entire community. Thank you.
Thank you. Abigail Martinez.
Hi, my name is Abby, and I am a student at the university, and I'm also part of the Social Justice Initiative. Today I'll be reading a community member statement. Bait and switch, circling back 5.5 years ago. Dr. Ivory Tatum and the pocketed 4-pack. What is your legacy going to be? One doesn't usually apply the term bait and switch to describe the ethos of a school district leadership team. However, some would state that this term is appropriately applied to the current leadership of Dr. Avery Tatum and the Urbana School District 116 school board members voting with her pocketed 4-pack. Where are the studies and opportunities for community input and idea generation proposed 5 years ago? Were parents in 2023 even asked what they want for their children? No. How does a recommendation for studies and community input made over 5 years ago morph into a recommendation to close Wiley for abatement with immediate board approval without any respectable time for community agency and voice to be considered? How does a promise of being renovated last end with a repurposing of the building? How was the union contract settled and partially funded on the back of a closed elementary school, but guys, as a student healthy and safety issue? This is how bait and switch works. This technique is used to influence people's choices and involves 3 stages. 1, individuals are led to make a rewarding decision to carry out a given behavior. 2, they are informed of the impossibility of carrying out this behavior. 3, a new but less rewarding decision is proposed. Ethos is the characteristic spirit of a culture, era, or community as manifested in its beliefs and aspirations. The need to deep dive to understand and operate in district ethos is not found consuming the Urbana School District 116 leadership, heralded and perpetrated district spirit, culture, community, beliefs, and aspirations. The perpetrated words are intentionally selected and used by the district to inspire confidence and goodwill and executed the mandated district responsibility of in loco parentis. In loco parentis is Latin for in the place of a parent, referring to the legal responsibility of a person or organization to take on some of the functions and responsibilities of a parent. What the district purports and heralds appears to be merely the bait to garner stakeholder trust. The deep dive needs to be focused on how the end users, the students, parents, teachers, staff, and community experience the district ethos and belief in the degree to which in loco parentis is actualized. Circling back 5.5 years to statements made by Board Member Brenda Carter in response to recommendations from the school district facilities recommendations. One can see the bait appears as proposed studies and garnering community input concerning the future of Wiley. The first recommendation from the community was to complete a demographic study, and the second recommendation called for researching specialized elementary educational programs, possibilities at Wiley Elementary School. To the second recommendation, Board Member Brenda Carter's response was, if we did this study and decided to make Wiley a specialty school, it would be interesting to see what the community thinks about that. Did Brenda Carter use the word if, signaling her deeper understanding of the district bait and switch strategy? Is the actual will and desire of the community only interesting and not what should lead to the decision? Fast forward to today. What is the lived experience of the district ethos and actions of in loco parentis concerning the Wiley community? Dr. Ivory Tatum and the pocketed 4-pack. What is your legacy going to be? Thank you.
Thank you. Julie Duvall.
My name is Julie Duvall. Paul, I'd like to give you, I don't know if I can walk up there or not. I'm asking for an ADA request that I can have longer than 5 minutes, up to 8 minutes, so I can speak as an advocate for SPED students at Urbana schools.
If the board doesn't object, I'm willing to allow it. All right,
Thank you. I had an agenda set for today. Let me start. I want to start with something positive. I came here in February, I think it was February 7th, and I saw the Tiger Academy presentation. The next day after I saw that presentation, I reached out to Dr. Wiemelt and said, oh, I have a student, I think that this program sounds great. Why don't we have a SPED program like this? He said, we do. The Tiger Academy will take SPED. Within 10 days, we had a high school student who was skipping classes, flunking every class. 7 staff members got together and worked endless emails, multiple meetings to get this student into this Tiger Academy. She has attended every class minus a few days of being sick. And as of last report card, she aced every class at Tiger Academy. The 2 she failed was Urbana, at the Urbana High School. That's my positive. I came here for a reason tonight, and as I sit here and I listen to people talk, I'm not discounting Wiley and what's going on with Wiley. But as I hear people talking about how they're being disserviced, I have a SPED student. Let me start by saying, since my last meeting, I have met with Angie, Jennifer, Todd, and Beth Ladd on multiple occasions about different SPED things. I've even spoken to Brian. Trying to figure out how we can make the system work, or to work together to make it together. Urbana together, better together, that's no. I sit here tonight and we are splintered. I came here prepared to be really positive and not go against people. I think we all need to check our egos at the door, be cognizant of how other people and what other people have gone through. I don't agree with this whole Wiley thing. I don't get it. But I know that Jennifer Ivory Tatum saved my family 4 years ago. I sit here and listen to Wiley families, and I'm not against them. I hear what they have to say. I am friends with some of these people on their group. But the things that they are complaining about, people in SPED have complained for years. My son is 30 years old, and we have the same problems today with my 10-year-old. Last Wednesday, I walked into the school because my granddaughter was hurt, and they called me to come check on her. I went to go look at my son's classroom. My son was sleeping in class. That's a form of escaping. We've had this conversation about 9 times this school year. The school put something in place. Dr. Ivory Tatum was involved, Todd, Jennifer Hastings. They were all involved and put this in place. My case manager and the social worker were never informed. When I woke him up, he had handprints. He was so dead asleep and for so long that he had fingers and nail marks in his face. I took him out of school. I met with Todd, Jennifer, Angie, and Beth on Thursday, prearranged meeting. I got a hold of Todd Wednesday afternoon and told him what happened. Today is Tuesday. My son has not been in school. I have not had any word from any staff member asking where my son is. Every day you get money for students to be at school. Every day you get extra money for SPED students. For the last 5 days, you have not received a dime for my son because the staff has not done what they were supposed to. I feel for Wiley. I'm here to talk about SPED. We are here. We have not gone anywhere. We are strong as our weakest player. In the SPED world, we talk about expectations and how they are met, and that everybody has the same expectations, but they get met in a different way. I agree that teachers need to get a raise, but they're not doing their job now. They are teachers. I had a class last week at Tiger Academy tell me how they watch teachers talk nasty and mean to students. And what can they do? They feel helpless. My only support are building admins and this school district. I understand not everybody is friends on this board and not everybody likes each other, but there are more than just certain people in this district. And I apologize for my anger, but I sit here and I think my poor kid hasn't been in school. Most of you know my son. No one called to find out where he was. Last Tuesday, he was choked in school. Yesterday, my granddaughter was slapped in school. There is a no tolerance policy. No one is being held accountable. Teachers don't tell admins. Admins don't tell the district. So I encourage every SPED, gen ed student or parent to contact the district. They can't fix it if they don't know it's broken. And I don't want to get into the politics of USD, but if it was not for you, when an IEP, a 42-page IEP to the letter was written to keep my granddaughter safe, that the school district or school administrators and staff did not follow, my family would not be where it is today. And if it wasn't for you protecting my family and the press, because of the staff that went out to the press, these are people's lives. These are our families. So whatever you want to do with Wiley, Sped's been here first. I expect a phone call in the morning from somebody from my district. I've asked my principal 3 times, and all I'm being told is, you can send him tomorrow. You've lost my currency. I have no trust. I trust some of the board member or the people up here. I've lost my building staff. I'm asked not to come into schools. I have principals tell me they don't want me in there. This is since I've been at this board. One of the principals told me, I saw you at that board meeting. I don't want you in my school. Leave. I said, this belongs to Jennifer Ivory Tatum. When she tells me to leave, I'll leave. I'm not going anywhere. And if I have to be like a Wiley parent and come here every board meeting, then that's what I will do. Apologize for my attitude. It was all made with respect. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You're welcome here anytime. Well, Mike Anderson.
Can you guys hear me now? Awesome. Hello again. My name is Mike Anderson. I'm a Wiley parent. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me. I have a few questions I'm hoping someone can answer for me. We'll start with on February 21st, the district presented the renovation timeline on its asbestos abatement presentation. It listed the Reimagine Wiley Committee to begin in March and run through August. Anyone remembers this slide right here? Sorry, it's as big as it goes. It says Reimagine Wiley Committee right there. On March 21st, the district presented the Special Facilities Planning Committee. That doesn't sound much like the Wiley Community Committee that we were promised. Now we find out we will have 2 seats on a committee of 55. Talk about a bait and switch. Well done. Can someone please explain to me how we went from what we were promised to what is being assembled today? Can anyone explain that to me?
There will be a discussion item about this later in our agenda. We will talk about it.
Okay. My second question, I'm hoping somebody can answer, is from me on February 7th presentation. Once again, Wiley was promised. Find it here. Administration will work with the Wiley community and building leaders to intentionally find creative ways to keep the Wiley families connected during the asbestos abatement project. This was from the February 7th pre-vote slide. Did I get blocked from all district communication? Because I haven't heard a peep about this from anybody. Everybody I've talked to hasn't heard anything about it. So what is the district's plan to keep Wiley's family connected? Is there a plan in place? We haven't heard anything about it. Anyone? No response?
We typically don't respond to. We typically don't respond. That's not a dialogue.
Okay.
But we can make sure that somebody follows up with that question.
If somebody can present a response in an appropriate time, that'll be fine. My last question is on the timeline back to February 21st. On the same slide presentation, it says the new roof has been slated for the spring and summer of 2024. So that would be next summer, or next spring, next summer. And now we're talking about getting a new roof on it this spring. Once again, I'm wondering what has changed. I'm glad we're getting a new roof because we desperately need a new roof. We should have had a new roof on that building years ago. But I'm just curious why things keep changing on us, and why, you know, if the district can't put together a proper planned out proposition, and that's well thought out and well organized and scheduled and takes into consideration different things, if they're too busy to do their homework, then they're too busy to run this project. And that's all we keep seeing is just promises, bait and switch, going here, going there, things change. We ask for questions, we never get answers. We're trying to FOIA stuff, we're getting shot down. We've asked direct questions, we haven't got responses. So we're just asking, as a Wiley community here, please, somebody, please communicate with us. There has been no communication to the Wiley community about this as we were promised. No, hey, let's sit down and talk about this. What are your concerns? No, we've talked about this. Does this meet your concerns? Nothing. So I'm just still waiting for it. So, I'm kind of tempted to just sit up here for the next minute and 27 seconds hoping somebody will respond to me. But I got other people that want to speak, so I'll be polite to them. But please take the time. Reach out to the Wiley community, whatever way you can, and answer our questions. Speak to us. We're here. We're going to be here. Hopefully, forever. Hopefully, Wiley won't get closed down, but that's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for keeping engaged, Mr. Anderson. We do appreciate your comments. Rob Burnett. Bennett, I'm sorry. My glasses.
Thank you, everybody. So I had also intended to ask some questions. I'm kind of curious. Is there an answer to why inquiries cannot be responded to during this comment time other than we don't usually do it that way? Or is there, because as far as our group can tell, we've looked at bylaws, we haven't seen anything that says that we can't ask a simple question and get an answer. So that changes how I'm going to proceed, but I would like to ask some simple questions. Is that okay?
You can ask whatever you want. This is your time.
Great. Thank you. All right. So action item 17.1 appeared on the agenda Friday afternoon. That is the approval of superintendent contract. The approval of an extension to the superintendent's contract will be requested. So my first question is, who is making that request? Who put this on the agenda?
The president and the superintendent jointly craft the agenda.
Okay. So both of you decided to put that on the agenda?
Okay.
The verbiage is requested, so I'm just wondering who requested it. So it was a joint request?
We can write your questions down and get back to
Okay, okay, I don't feel like that's a difficult question to answer.
It has been our policy for years and years. We do not.
It's been your policy, but it's a simple question to answer. And I feel like it's fairly, okay, so I will be happy to address my further questions and bring those to the board.
No,
Yeah.
we're ready to write. So
Yeah, this is not, you know what? We don't need to ask questions. I feel like this is a pretty straightforward set of answers that I'd be asking for. But here's one question. Why does this board now need to be considering an extension of a contract that, to my understanding, doesn't expire until 16-ish months from now? Why is that suddenly an item appearing on the agenda tonight in front of a board that is largely going to be going away shortly? Why is this suddenly an item now? Shouldn't this be something that maybe the incoming board, once votes are certified, are going to be considering? I mean, that seems to me like the next board should be the one considering this item. That seems fair to me. I don't know that I also was kind of curious as to what the rationale was for doing this early, but I guess we're not going to get a response to that either. Is there anybody who wants to address that? Okay, that's fine. All right, so yeah. I would put it out there that the look is not good. This is not good optics. This looks like, several references tonight to the superintendent and the pocketed four. I'm not going to name names, but I think all of us who have been here for a few months at least know who those names are. I think this looks like an attempt to basically prematurely extend a contract that doesn't need to be extended tonight, but we're playing it safe and hopefully making sure that results are achieved before the next board is seated. I don't think it's good optics. I think it's a bad look for the board. It's also a bad look for Superintendent Ivory Tatum. It makes a look of illegitimacy to whatever's going forward. So that's all I got to say. Thank you.
I do appreciate your comments, sir. Savannah Donovan.
Hi, thank you. My name is Savannah Donovan. I'm a Wiley parent. Just have a brief statement. A school is the children it serves. The Wiley Reimagining Committee needs more Wiley parent voices on it to serve our children's best interests. Wiley is not an underutilized school. It fills a need. It's a fully staffed school serving a vital role in our diverse neighborhood. I have 3 children who would attend Wiley next year. I'm here tonight because I love Wiley Elementary. We need to reserve educational spaces like this for the good of our community. That's what this committee and ultimately this renovation needs to be used for building up our neighborhood. It seems like you are single-handedly trying to decide the fate of this elementary school without any parental involvement. Mr. Pulaski, you need to redesign this flawed committee that silences Wiley voices. We need more Wiley parents and staff on the committee. If I can sign up, please let me know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Crystal Hall.
My name is Crystal Hall, and I'm a Wiley parent. I thought it couldn't get worse than a school closure, but I was wrong. I'm disheartened, dissatisfied, feeling demoralized by the duplicitous doublespeak and undemocratic process of the school closure and the undemocratic proposed design of the facilities committee. So let's review back a few months. Wiley was voted to be closed for an asbestos abatement health emergency, which has essentially become the code word for Operation Shut Down a Majority Black School with the highest percentage of minoritized certified teachers. So let's get back to the fundamentals and consider what our school community means to our students. To quote Dr. Jerome Morris in his article, closures of Black K-12 schools across the nation threaten neighborhood stability. Throughout Black people's history in the U.S., predominantly Black K-12 schools have served as pillars in Black communities. Their importance is second only in significance to the Black church. Neighborhood schools help stabilize communities and foster a sense of belonging for children, serving as a foundation for academic achievement. So in the proposed design of the facilities committee regarding Wiley, please consider the meaning, the place, and the inherent function of our neighborhood school. Morris also articulates in the same article what I would personally call administration brutality. I've been pondering the actions of the 4 members of the board and the actions of the district in the last few months. But I couldn't quite articulate the injustice I felt and continue to feel. Morris does it aptly when he writes, amid national rallying cries and hashtags that Black Lives Matter, I believe greater attention needs to be given to efforts aimed at stopping the closing of Black K-12 public schools. Just as the Black Lives Matter movement demands a stop to the unjust killing of Black people, residents of predominantly Black communities throughout the U.S. are also fighting to stop the killing of their communities through school closures. We are here to fight the further killing of our community. We have been promised over and over again that this is not a closure, it is just an abatement, yet the very committee that is supposed to reimagine what our neighborhood school will become barely has any Wiley stakeholder voices. The administration's current design is a 55-member facilities committee composed of 17 district administrators and principals, 31% of the committee, 2 parent liaisons, presumably dual language, 3 UEA representatives, the union representatives, 12 elementary parents, 2 from each school, 6 middle school parents, 6 elementary teachers and staff, 6 middle school teachers and staff, 3 community members, and that's not even including co-chairs and board members. Wiley will only have 2 parents in a 55-member committee. This is only 3.6% of the possible vote. We deserve just as many voices as the administration currently has. 2 won't do. And I'll repeat that, 2 won't do. So Board President Pulaski, we know you have the exclusive authority to accept or reject the committee design, and you will appoint the committee members. It is your decision and responsibility alone. Please use your authority to represent and strengthen Wiley voices. The current committee design continues to silence the Wiley voice. We have not had a say in this entire process. So Board President Pulaski, we respectfully ask you to reject this current proposal and approve a new design of a facilities committee that actually represents Wiley voices. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian Gaines.
Good evening. My name is Brian Gaines. I'm the W. Russell Arrington Professor in State Politics at the University of Illinois, but my comments tonight are not in the capacity as a professor or on behalf of the university. I'm speaking as a parent of 3 children in the school district and 2 more who will be in the school district in short order. And I also want to speak about action item 17.1, the possible extension of the superintendent's contract. The point I want to make is the same one, essentially, that as a procedural matter, since we've had an election, the people have spoken, we have a new board to be constituted, it doesn't make a great deal of sense to have this item decided by the current board. This is a point that's strictly procedural. I don't have any particular inkling about how the present board or the future board will be likely to vote. I'm not going to make an argument about the substantive merits of it. But I think that things that are not deeply urgent, that are especially consequential and forward-reaching, ought to be decided when an election has taken place, not in the lame duck session, but in the reconstituted session. The term lame duck is a metaphor. It's used loosely. It's a metaphor. People are free to use it any way they like, but I'll clarify. Sometimes people say the president in his second term is a lame duck because he can't be reelected, or, for example, an official who has not yet been reappointed is a lame duck. That's not the sense that there's a democratic reason not to act. The particular reason not to act is when an election has taken place. The people who are the ultimate bosses have spoken, and the new people's representatives are known but are not yet constituted as the elected body, as a legislative or a collective body. In those circumstances, I think, it's not to say the board can do nothing, of course, especially on urgent matters, the board ought to act, but it is insensible to make decisions that will have far-reaching, long-standing effects when the new board will be meeting soon enough. So again, it's not a substantive point at all. It's merely a procedural one. I would say not from the vantage point of legal authority, but from the vantage point of democratic accountability. It does not make sense to address action item 17.1 now. It makes sense to hold it off and leave that to the new board. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ephraim Tutwiler.
Hello. I think last time, or 2 weeks ago, I wasn't here, but the idea of the legacy that was brought up of this board, it's been a lack of transparency. Since I've been coming, what I've been asking for is a plan, right? Just some sort of idea so that, heck, we could bring it back to other parents and kind of talk about things. Because there hasn't been. I have reached out to kind of get an idea. My son's in SPED. I want to know how many kids are going to Thomas Paine, how many kids are in the... I never got an idea of the snapshot of where we currently are so that you can plan for the future. Do you have enough staff? Do you not? I understand that there's going to be some fluctuations with kids added and taken out of there, but I never got an answer to that. There have been other questions that I've had that there have been no answers to. And I understand that people are moving around, but there haven't been answers. And that is kind of the legacy that I'm left with here for this board. There have been questions that have been brought up. Prior to where we are now, Ann mentioned that that's the reason why we added on to Thomas Paine, that you guys added these extra classrooms for this current situation. Hey, we never had a vote in that. That was all during the strictly Thomas Paine. We have not had anything for us. Now you guys are taking it away from us. And I'm to the point where I want to cry. Like, there's nothing that you guys have really done to help us in general. It was an abatement. Then it was a financial decision to continue forward, right? Our community has been broken apart. Teachers going here, teachers going there. Like, kids' friends, gone, going to different schools. Not that this means anything to you guys, because I guess it's like numbers, right? But it's breaking my heart. I can tell you, honestly, I'm more connected than what you guys may know, but like, we've got numerous veteran teachers that are not returning due to this current situation. My wife is a teacher in this district. Why? I've got 2 kids right now in this school, with a third on his way to early childhood. Why do I want to keep them here? Why? Because you guys could very well close the next one. And honestly, as a mad parent, I could ask you, why aren't we closing Thomas Paine next year instead of keeping Wiley there, right? It's not it's a financial decision, right? Not just, but it would be unfair to move everybody, right? But we're having to deal with that. We're absorbing all of that for next year. My son's in 3rd grade. He won't get a chance to graduate from Wiley. Well, my daughter in kindergarten now? Who knows? Because it could be a middle school. It could be all these other things that we had talked about previously. But yet, there has been no conversations. Like, I would like to have a conversation with somebody. I don't care if they're from my sub-district. I don't care if they're from another one. I don't care what part they're from. I just want to have a conversation to understand what's going on, because it's breaking my heart. I have a serious passion for education. Those of you who do not know, I was going to become a music teacher. I didn't finish my degree, right? I had some financial aid issues, and this is a prime reason why I would not finish my degree. I would not come to be a teacher. Why? The closure of schools. The lack of input here, you don't have an idea of what's going to happen, right? It's a vote for people that you may not see. Brian, I do want to thank you. My wife has mentioned that you have come out and there was someone else that came with you to talk to teachers at the school. But we have not seen any other board members there. I don't know how to say it, but there's a lack of transparency here. Honest question, has anybody else been to Wiley? Okay, 2 others, thank you. But I still feel like there needs to be more, because my wife doesn't feel supported. She needs more conversation. She needs more, and I know that there are other people as well. Now, I'm not trying to get my wife in trouble. I'm not trying to do anything like that. But, I mean, there needs to be more conversations here. And I understand that we've got some moving around. I know, Mr. Gutzmer, you won't be here on the, oh no, wrong one, Mr. Gutzmer, Mr. Taylor, yes, your face, I was right there. But yes, I know you won't be on the board next year, but like, I know Beth is gonna be taking over for you. And I would love to have a conversation next to see what is gonna happen for the SPED program, because we have no idea. And I get that kids have the or parents have the opportunity to send their kids to different schools, but it shouldn't change that much. There should be some idea right now of a snapshot of how many kids are in the SPED program at Wiley based on where they live, because we already drew the maps up. Where are they going? We have no answer for that. I haven't gotten it. How many other kids are going where? I mean, we're getting closer to the date. We've had meetings. We've had times for people to actually address where they want to go. I understand that there are going to be some small changes, but I mean, we should be in the ballpark of where we're supposed to be. And right now, there haven't been any conversations. And I feel like we need more support here. Because if there's not, like, we were building these, we were updating this school to bring back some of the parents that left during the pandemic. Why wouldn't I leave?
I'm sorry, Mr. Wiley.
I know I'm going over time, but still. One last point. You were in our situation 10 years ago. You were in our situation. You were pleading with the board to help us. And right now, I'd love to have a conversation with you totally outside of here, because right now, we have not been heard. We are not added to the board. 3.5 or 3.6% is not enough.
Thank you, Mr. Trotweiler, and please reach out to me over email. I'm happy to talk with you. Does anybody else wish to make a statement before the board this evening? Kenita Fay is quickly filling out a form and is going to be making one last statement before the board. You don't need to fill it out right now. Just go ahead and go ahead, Kenita.
Hi there. Can you hear me? Okay. Sorry. I am speaking as a community volunteer, and my statement does not reflect any of the organization that I currently served on. I am asked to speak because many community volunteers cannot be here. I will ask them to email you. First, this week is Public School Volunteer Week, so we would like to thank you for your service. Special shout out to board member Carter for her 14 plus years. So we thank you. You have a very difficult job, and we know that you all cannot please everybody. Breathe, you guys. Second, I would like to ask you to up your game on sharing pertinent information. It is really hard to watch some of the comments last couple of weeks, since on the one hand, I can see why community members are so upset. On the other hand, I also have seen many misinformation been spreading around. So as a person who's been in the district, I too, I'm sorry, not President Polsky himself was on this side of the table. I was here speaking, giving you guys hard time, part of the Wiley community, you know, then. But the difference is we had the right information. I felt that it's so hard. It's so hard to see people because, like, when you volunteer on the ground and know a lot, you know, you know things that people don't know, but you're not in a position to speak. And like folks are upset. Of course they're upset. But are they upset on the right reason? Maybe yes, maybe no. So you all might need to up your games and share with them the information. Anyway, so my heart goes out to our student ambassador who spend their time here. You have our respect. It is hard, but I hope you learn from, you know, all this. So yeah, you really need to share some more information. People have good intention, but when they don't know information, they start to, you know, feel and think certain way. Third, as you know, you are holding very important position, and the learning curve is big. Anybody who has experience serving on a consequential committee knows that it takes a long time to learn about the organization. When you all came first time, I'm sorry, you did not make any sense when I watched you on TV. You know, like you learn, you need a lot of time before you start knowing how to vote and all that. And because of that, many of us feel that for you to conduct business, you know, for this long, we voted you in, and you simply gonna say, hey, I'm gonna leave this for the next board to decide. Doesn't make logical sense to us. Because it's your doing. You have been listening, studying, working, you know, with this team. And you'll be like, I'm out. Like, when you campaign, you did not say, by the way, last semester, I am not doing anything. Had you said that, we might not vote you in. It is responsibility that you might want to look and take seriously. Okay, lastly, sorry I'm too emotional, but we thank you. This is a thankless job. People yell at you. Sometimes they look at you as hero. Some people look at you as villain, you know. But the truth is, you spend countless of time being here, and we thank you, and we would, want you to still be part of our school, even if you no longer serve as a board. If anybody want to volunteer, you have my email. We welcome you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kanita. One last call for citizen statements. All right, hearing none. No, I think that's Kanita's form. Oh, you are Angie?
Hi, my name is Angie Franklin, and I'm an Urbana resident and parent. In addition, I have the privilege of serving as the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources. I wanted to provide clarity to our audience here tonight, in addition to those watching at home. Since it has not been the board's practice to engage in conversation during public comment, I thought it would be helpful to share information in this way, despite my supervisor's recommendation. Superintendent contracts are worked on well in advance, and this is not unusual for our district. This is the same process followed by other high-profile positions in leadership. In an educator and administrator shortage, school districts and other organizations want to secure their leaders so they don't get stolen away by our competitors. The current board recently approved the teacher contract, just as the current board would approve the superintendent contract extension. On a more personal note that I think others should know, the contract extension for the superintendent was discussed being on the agenda a few months ago. Dr. Ivor Tatum refused to put her contract extension on the board agenda because the teacher contract had not yet been approved. She didn't feel it was ethical to have her contract voted on prior to the teachers. I think that's important for folks to know. Thanks.
One last call. All right. There is no policy review tonight and no communications, so it's time for a student ambassador's report. Parker?
Well, as I'm sure you all, I'm sorry. As I'm sure you all know, the school year is coming to an end. We have a lot of tests going on right now. AP tests are coming up. We have finals. We had the ACT last week, SAT last week. We have the SELA Biliteracy test this week. So I just want to say good luck to everyone. And that prom is coming up, and we're all very excited for that.
Thank you, Parker. Our first administrative report tonight is math adoption update. So.
Okay, as we get the presentation started here, I have Mrs. Uscali, our Director of Curriculum, Instruction, and Student Learning, and Mrs. Deacon, our Director of ESSER and Grant-Based Programs, and they'll both be joining me this evening. But what we wanted to do this evening was outline the process of the past 2 years in order to prepare for the math adoption that we will share this evening. I've also have some questions that have been shared with me, and I would just like to respond to those before we get started. The past 2 years was spent on committee work and 75 teachers that conducted the math pilot at elementary, middle school, and high school. We also had professional development with Janet Moore. She is an external math consultant, and it's also important to note that Janet does not endorse any particular program that we piloted. Her support guides instruction through priority standards and 8 mathematical practices. Throughout this process, you can start at the beginning, John, and then we'll go through. I'm just kind of intro. The CIA team, so that's the Curriculum Instruction Assessment team, made a decision based on all the points that you will see highlighted in this presentation, particularly when we get to slide 3. There was a survey that was conducted among the 75 teachers that piloted for math, but unfortunately only 17% responded. Again, I want to stress that there were multiple factors that we will outline that were included with this decision-making process. The decision was first shared with principals, and then elementary teachers were told when they were in their grade level groups. It was important that the message was delivered to all of our grade level teachers at the same time. If it would have been a road show and we would have went around school to school, it wouldn't have been delivered at the same time and perhaps not have been a consistent message. And that was really important to us. Since this conversation, this unveiling of our new math program was done via Zoom, it was done in large spaces, so in libraries or classrooms, and it was not individual Zooms. So we did not have chat or individual Zoom screens on at that time. We've heard from some of our teachers that were concerned about that, and we want to apologize that it was not more interactive, but it was due to the nature that we had a short amount of time. This was our last grade level staff development for the year, and we also had several other items that were part of the agenda that day. Good news is we have over 50 elementary teachers that have already signed up for the professional development, and over 25 secondary teachers for the training so far. So now at this time, Mrs. Uscali and Mrs. Deacon will further outline the timelines, resources, and future opportunities for professional development to support our educators. Thank you.
Well, good evening. I'm Erica Uscali. I'm the Director of Curriculum and Student Learning for the district. Thank you for allowing us to share some exciting information with you tonight. Tanya and I were here prior to the beginning of the school year, I believe it was, and we shared with you about the math pilots that were getting ready to take place in the district. And we were excited then, and we are excited now about where we have gone. On this next slide, I'm going to start at the 9-12 end because it was high school that jumped into this first. So when we began this process, which we will outline in a few minutes, the high school jumped in much quicker than anyone else. They found a couple of different series that they were interested in and they wanted to pilot. And so they jumped in first. They piloted 2 series. One was Into Math and the other was Illustrative Mathematics. Most of that piloting was done at the Algebra 1 level. And so it went across the school. It cut across many of our students and impacted many of our students. Not all teachers piloted. That is part of what happens with a pilot is they have the option to do it or not. And so about half of our Algebra 1 staff piloted and about half did not. At the end of their pilot time, the high school made the decision that they wanted to move forward with a more extensive pilot of just one of those 2 series, and so they chose Illustrative Mathematics and wanted to move forward with that and try it in both Algebra 2 and Geometry as well. And so during this school year, we have had extended pilots happening in Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and Geometry. The middle school was also approached about thinking about which series they wanted to pilot as well. After talking with the high school, the middle school came back to us and said, we would like to move forward with the same pilot that the high school is doing. And so when you see the listing of just one pilot at the middle school, that was by choice, that they wanted to only pilot the one that the high school was doing because they were looking for some consistency from the middle school to the high school. Then we also had 3 pilots that took place in elementary schools. So we had Eureka Squared, which you may know that we have had the Eureka program as our math program in elementary for the last several years. So Eureka Squared was one of them, which is the next addition. We also had Into Math, which you will see is one that we did in the high school as well. And then we had Illustrative Mathematics again. So those pilots have gone on throughout this entire school year. Again, not all teachers piloted. but a very large portion of our elementary staff did pilot. We had teachers in all areas of our educational settings. We had special ed teachers, we had dual language teachers, we had gen ed teachers, we had a variety of people who piloted these 3 programs.
On our next slide, one of the things that was requested as we went into the pilot was to make sure that we were collecting multiple points of information, that we were gathering data from the teachers, not just at the end of the program, but as the pilots were taking place. Weekly surveys were sent out to the staff, and we did get a lot of data from them on a week-to-week basis. So we were able to see what they were thinking, what was going on, as we were at different parts of the program. We were able to glean a great deal of feedback about implementation, how that rolled out, which companies fared better than the others as far as getting materials and training into place for the staff. How easy is it to use? Our 6 through 12 friends, they're math specialists. That is what they're passionate about and have trained in. Elementary wanted something that would be a little bit more user-friendly and would be well supported through training. Prep time is the theme that came through with all 3 of the programs. It looked different as far as what the prep time would involve, anywhere from creating centers to trying to determine the different ways that we might supplement through intervention. So there was a lot of feedback provided for those. Diagnostic options, there was concern, would we lose a tool along the way? I'm going to say the middle school because they've really enjoyed iReady for the diagnostic purposes of it. But when our committee met together, that was one that the committee had chosen not to move forward with. Availability of products, I put in the list weekly responses, getting information again back from the staff. We also did a presentation at the end, and we asked each of the pilots to work together to create a presentation about the different programs so that they could see what each other's program looked like. If somebody was unhappy with the program that they piloted, we needed them to have information about the other programs. What was interesting when we did those presentations is they did all come back to the concrete representational abstract methods, which was one of the criteria when we went into the pilot to make sure that was a fundamental part. MAP scores was a little bit trickier. The program itself did not generate the data that we were all looking for in the manner that we were looking for. We tried to piece some pieces together and try to make some decisions. They scored within, I think it was a 10 percentile range. So there wasn't one that stood out over the rest with the different pieces. Training has been interesting and definitely consideration. Each of the pilots had a very different philosophy about how they did their training. And so there was a lot of conversation about what would be the best for supporting our staff. Availability, I missed ed reports. Eureka Squared was supposed to have had its results come out, and that has not happened yet. And then Into Math was outscored by Illustrative Math by the experts looking at the data and making determinations on several different factors. Then we have the availability of Spanish resources. Having our dual language teachers pilot was a very critical piece to be able to see what can we support, what are we going to need to do as we move forward, and then just consistency throughout the district. Can we pair up any of the 3 programs with what the 6 through 12 group will be doing? So that way we have a way of making sure that we're layering and spiraling our content.
So after looking at all of those pieces and looking in depth at all of the information that we received throughout the year, we made the choice to move forward with illustrative mathematics. That will be a K-12 math series. So we will have consistency across all grade levels. I looked for a description, just a short description of illustrative mathematics, just so that you could kind of begin to get a taste of what it is all about. And so I want to read that to you now. Math is not a spectator sport. Students learn by doing math, solving problems in mathematical and real-world context, and constructing arguments using precise language. Illustrative mathematics is a problem-based core curriculum for 21st century learners designed to address content and practice standards to foster learning for all, preparing students to solve problems, reason, communicate, and think critically in the classroom and beyond. I know when I read that, it's pretty exciting. When I think about the hopes and dreams that we have for our students, I feel like this is something that is really going to help us move forward. I do want to take you back in time a little bit and just back this up so that you can see how long this process has been in place. We began this process of trying to find a new series back in the 2020-21 school year. That is when our math committee, our district-wide math committee, was formed. At that time, the committee began to set goals. We began to look at our district data. We also began to look at best practices and the most current research in math education. Then in 2021-22, the math committee divided into 3 subcommittees. So there was one that was looking at curriculum and curriculum development, especially within the standards reference learning work that we've been doing across the district. We had another that looked at a variety of math series, and then we had another that began to look at interventions that we could use with all of our students K-12. At that time, as I said earlier, UHS Algebra 1 teachers decided that they wanted to begin a pilot in second semester of the last school year. And we also contracted Janet Moore to be an outside consultant to work with our teachers across the district. Then this year, we had 75 teachers. So this is in addition to the teachers who piloted last year. We had 75 teachers who engaged in the math pilots across the district. We had an emphasis throughout the district on the 8 mathematical practices and also the mathematical teaching practices. Janet Moore continued her work with our district, and in the end, a new math series was determined. Looking ahead to this spring and the summer, we have a wide variety of series and platform trainings that are happening. We have tried to account for all possible times that teachers might be able to train. So we have some that are happening during the school day with subs as available. We also have some that are happening in the evenings, and teachers get paid for their time. We also have some that are available even on Saturdays. So if someone has a second job during the summer and they can't work, they don't want to come to training, or they can't come to training, they have the option of coming on Saturday. We also have virtual options. We have in-person options, a variety of things happening after the school year ends as well. We also have some supportive professional development in place, which Tanya will outline in a few minutes. We're trying to make sure that our teachers feel very supported as we make this move, because it is very different from what they are used to, and so we want them to have the support that they need. We also have additional trainings happening with Janet Moore, and our materials have been ordered. Math lending libraries are in the process of being created as well, so that we can get manipulatives into the hands of our teachers and students K-12. In the fall, we will train any staff that is new, so new hires will be trained before the school year begins. We also are working to put in support systems for students as they make this transition, because it will be very different from what they're used to as well. And so that's our plan at this point, so looking back and looking forward at where we are going.
With regard to our training, we were asked by administrators and by teaching staff to look at a variety of ways that we can make sure that we're reaching out and providing the support. So the different formats that we have worked to try to make sure math is getting a little bit of space in the next school year are K-5 Monday meetings. Part of the building level meetings will be a 45-minute piece reviewing and working on the techniques that are universal to all K-5 grades. We have our unit rollouts. That is something that Janet Moore will help us out with, as far as what do we need, what is the must do and what is the may do as you look at each unit, and determining what is the higher priority for your students. We have our K-5 grade level meetings, using time on those staff development days in the morning to do some more math refreshers when they'll be together with their grade level colleagues. We have the 6 through 12 every other Wednesday. They had actually requested that from us specifically, that they would like to dedicate alternating weeks using their development time on Wednesdays to work on math. K through 12 Unit 0. That is specifically focused on the mathematical practices. It was fun tonight. I'm a math person. I taught secondary mathematics as I started my career. And we did have our first session tonight of training with illustrative in a virtual format. And it was fun to listen to the teachers talk about how they looked at things differently tonight when that was being presented to them. So it was kind of I loved it as a groovy thing. So being able to enjoy that time and talking math with our staff. And then K through 12 center and activity preps. Something that came through most heavily with illustrative, but also with the others. The creation of the centers is very time involved. What we have done is we've done further research, and in the last few months we were notified Hand to Mind has now looked at the centers that are within illustrative mathematics and have put together kits. The kits are actually in district as of today, and we want to sit with the teachers and double check to make sure that it has the contents that we're looking for and what are we missing that we might need to supplement, keeping all of that in mind. If we can go ahead to the next. Then again, we have our monthly coaching meetings with our instructional coaches. They've requested to have some time dedicated to math so that they could better support the staff. They've also asked, of course, to be included in the training, and we're not turning people away. Anybody that feels that it's supportive to the work that they do, they have the opportunity to sign up for any of the trainings. And as Eric had mentioned, we have all different types: evenings, virtual, in person, during school year, outside of school year, and we do have one that's sitting there for Saturdays. Hoping for a little bit more turnout for that, and we can get that lined up. Janet Moore is committing to us for next year more time than she had done this year. We are competing with the baby, so we do know that we will be doing some Zooming, but we had a meeting again yesterday to thoughtfully craft how can we make sure that we have what we need in place, and even creating a library of sorts so that teachers can draw on that as they need to. DL math training, it's an AIMS program that Lupe and the DL teachers have brought and asked. It is extremely similar to what we're trying to do with Janet Moore, except it would come from a DL ESL perspective. We are waiting to get that prospectus from that company. We met with them again last Friday. We should have it by tomorrow is what they had targeted for us. Math practice walkthrough training and data collection. At our last principals meeting, we asked the administrators to please give us some information as to what do you need to help support your staff in your building with the math rollout. K through 12 Unit 0 training, not only from the teacher side and implementing it in the classroom, but from the administrative side. What do they look for when they're going into the classroom so they know where the struggles are and what we need to do to keep it moving forward. And then to solve or address a bit of the diagnostic issue, we have ExactPath. That was a contract that was signed earlier this year. We're using it on a pilot at the moment with some of our interventionists, and we're seeing some good results with that. So we're hoping that this will be, it aligns with MAP as well. So we're able to take the data from MAP, put it into ExactPath, and use that to help the kids in intervention. It is web-based, so it's not the hands-on that we'd like. I think that we're concerned that the number of kids coming out, that they're just not at grade level. That's an attempt to try to help as we bridge the rigor gap that's coming into any of the 3 programs. That was also consistent feedback. The programs were all very rigorous, and there was concern about that for our kids. That's not unique to Urbana. You know, with COVID and which some of the struggles we've had, that's something that we're going to continue to work on.
So we, again, are very excited to share this with you tonight. I can say that the prospect of having a series that goes across kindergarten through 12th grade is huge for us, to be able to have consistency, to be able to know that concepts will be spiraled through, that students will be able to build foundations and then grow from those things as they move through our school system. And so it's very, very exciting. As I've said before, this is a different kind of series than what we're used to. And so we hope that you see that all of the supports that we are putting in place are truly meant to be supportive to our staff, to our students, to our administrators. And so it's very exciting. We hope that you are excited about this as well. Thanks for letting us share.
All right, thank you very much. Board members, any questions? And Tori listening at home, any questions? I guess I have a couple if no one else does. Go, Brian. Okay, well, I'll go first. Have you talked to districts comparable to our size who have rolled this program out in order to figure out what lessons they learned and what to do, what not to do, with, so we could repeat their successes?
Specifically, Champaign 4, they are using it 6 through 12, and so we reached out to their curriculum folks and asked what were some things that you found helped with the successful rollout. And this was after we were looking at what were we leaning towards, because it wouldn't help to call them if that isn't what they're using. District 87 in Bloomington is also using this program. And again, they were able, the one thing that came through, just like what our staff said to us, the training is going to be key. You know, it's a 6 to 8 hour training, and then another 90-minute platform training. ESSER is paying for the training time for the staff when it's outside of the day as well, to help support and move us forward. It was an area we saw last spring we had a deficit in, and we need to make sure that we're getting on that.
The follow-up question is there like a relative cost breakdown in terms of financials between this and other programs we've had in the past?
I can get something together for you if you're looking for something specific. If you're talking about contracted amount for materials.
Just the overall budget implications of rolling out this plan as compared to what we had in the past would be useful.
I would have to see what that was, what it was in the past. I know what it's looking at right now. If I had to guess, I don't know that you want me to guess, but we're right around 300,000 once we get the manipulative kits added in there.
Okay. Anyone else?
Did you say that is funded through ESSER?
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Just wanted to make sure.
ESSER
I did
2.
catch that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This is one of those moments where it's like kind of weird being a board member, in that I'm not an expert in curriculum, nor am I a K through 12 math teacher. But I emailed Kim some questions early on that did not actually come from me. I was in a space with some teachers this weekend, coincidentally. And math curriculum was not something that was particularly on my mind, but my role as a mouthpiece here, I'm just going to make kind of a general comment. And it feels really apropos of what we listen to in the public comment, which is sometimes the disconnect between what we know on the inside and what others know when things are communicated. And it was a little bit evident in the presentation as well that the data points that are used sometimes to make decisions, I know you were on limited time because we have a lot on our agenda. My understanding from the teachers was that there was very much a feeling of a lot of stuff happened and a decision was made and communicated in a Zoom format, and then that was it, right? There's lots of stuff that's going to happen down the road. And so my comment really, I'm not looking for any kind of response tonight, but simply we on this side of the table, I think we do need to really listen and say, we're trying to make decisions here that are in the best interest of people. We're trying to use data. We're spending a lot of time doing these things, but something is being lost in translation. And then the look is we've made a backdoor decision and then we've imposed that on other people. Change is scary. They have a lot of training to do. So the comment really is just the degree to which the dots can be connected. So all those data points you used, the albeit small survey sample that you got, something like 20%, if there could be, a briefing to teachers, perhaps you did that and they missed it, I don't know. How did we get from the pilot to the data to the decision? I think that would be very well received, at least by the people who spoke to me.
I just want to share, because I don't think I mentioned this, that, and there were actually a few more slides that we removed for the presentation just for this evening, but this was actually the same presentation that was shared with principals first and then teachers. So they did go over those points that, what was part of what made that decision. As I mentioned on slide 3, that was shared with teachers. This was the same presentation. So I didn't add that earlier.
Anyone else have any comments or questions? All right, well, thank you very much for staying tonight. Our second administrative report is 10.2, Quest Food Management Services Emergency Food Service Contract Proposal. So I guess Katie will present.
I would like to invite Nick Sicaro, Chris Cott and Josh Bain up to present this proposal. Well, they're going to give a company overview and discuss some of their proposed changes. And also, if you didn't get a chance, I mean, feel free. They brought an amazing spread of some various foods, so some of which they may highlight tonight when they're talking. So, and it's all very yummy. Thank you. Welcome.
If you could hit the little button at the bottom of your mic so that it turns green, that'd be great.
Awesome. We good? All right. I hope you guys enjoyed the food. And if you didn't, again, please grab some. I'm Nick. I'm the president at Quest. We are incredibly excited to have the opportunity to chat with you guys for a few minutes, tell you a little bit about Quest, and I think more importantly, a little bit about our vision for the program here. And Josh is going to do most of the talking about our vision for the program here. So if you wouldn't mind jumping to the next slide, please. So a little bit about Quest. We've been in business for almost 40 years. We're based in the western suburbs of Chicago. We're a privately held company, second generation. The gentleman that owns our company is like 57, 58. His son was actually one of the individuals that was helping put the food together for you guys today, which is pretty cool. We have about 150 different partners that we work with, and all but about 10 of them are K-12 schools. So that's been the backbone of our company for nearly 40 years. It's really what started our company, and K-12 education partners are still what drives our business today. We have about 1,300 employees scattered anywhere from, if you go from Milwaukee, we've got a huge concentration in Chicagoland. We're building a presence here in this part of Illinois. We've got 7 accounts in Indianapolis up to Fort Wayne and Detroit, so all kind of in the upper Midwest here. And we're at about $92 million in annual revenue. We've been ranked one of the 10 fastest growing companies in our industry 6 out of the last 7 years. And the reason I bring that up, those two numbers in and of themselves don't really mean a whole lot to anyone. But what's really fueled our growth and what's allowed us to get to that number from a revenue perspective is if you look back over like the last 15 years, year over year, we're at like a 99.7% retention rate of our existing clients. So we are very picky about the partners that we work with. We turn down probably 80 to 100 opportunities a year that we don't think make sense to us. And one of the things that we have learned about the partnership here and the opportunity here that has us so very excited is how interested the community seems to be in food quality for students. And that has been something that's differentiated us from day one, and is something that we are super, super passionate about. If you don't mind jumping to the next slide, please. One of the things that we try to do to, I think, put words to that passion is our food philosophy. And this is something that absolutely sets us apart from other competitors in the space. So things like never using any trans fats for anything prepared in-house, no MSG, 100% cage-free eggs. All of our produce is either fresh, frozen, packed in 100% water or juice. So we're not using a lot of canned processed foods. We do much more scratch cooking than most of our competition does. Of course, we're going to still see some convenience items out there, but even things like chicken nuggets, for example, are whole muscle meat with us. It's not pressed and formed things that you wouldn't recognize if you open up the nugget, what's in there. And so that food quality piece is super, super important to us, and I think the food philosophy kind of highlights our attention to that and our focus on that. Next slide, please. And then before I turn it over to Josh, I think one of the things that really sets us apart as an organization is the flexibility that we provide our on-site managers. So unlike a lot of the other folks that work in our space where the menus are really prescribed from the corporate entity down to the local managers, we provide our on-site folks with an incredible amount of flexibility to adjust the program to meet the community's needs. And that is something that we expect as from an organizational standpoint. It's not just something that we allow. So one of the things that we spend a lot of time on, and we'll talk about it towards the end of our presentation today, are food committees, where we actually get out and meet and sit with the students and hear their feedback about what's working with the program, what's not working with the program. We actually had our first food committees at Mahomet today. We just started there a few weeks ago, and so it was awesome to get some feedback from the students today. And that is something that we expect all of our on-site managers to do at least once a semester at every building that they have. Of course, we have to have partnership with the district to make that happen. But then based on that feedback that they're receiving from the students, we allow them a lot of rope and a lot of flexibility to listen to that feedback and then implement those changes so that the program continues to evolve as the years go on. So, you know, I think one of the things that we typically see is a pretty big bump in participation when we first start, because the food quality is there with the scratch ingredients and the food philosophy and those types of things. But the reason that we have that client retention, one of the big reasons that we have that client retention rate that I mentioned earlier, is because the program keeps evolving because we're listening to the students. We've been at places for 15, 20, 25 plus years. I'll give an example of a couple of schools in Chicagoland. One that we started at, it was a large high school district. When we started there, they were doing annual sales of about $400,000 a year, and we're north of $3.5 million now. And that's not more students coming into the school. That's not like, you know, we're not raising prices that much in that amount of time. That is truly listening and continuing to evolve the program year after year after year. And that really is who we are as an organization. And I think, you know, when we focus on the food quality, the community integration, we're going to talk a little bit about grab-and-go options here, because that's always an option that we see, especially for high school students, is really underrepresented in food programs. We think we've got something super unique to offer here. And the last thing I'll say before we turn it over to Josh, before I turn it over to Josh, is I know we're a bit new to the area here. I get that. Again, we've been in business for about 40 years. I think the one thing that I will share with you all is if you guys were to choose to work with Quest, we're not a multi-billion-dollar company that if we have a partnership like this, of this size and this magnitude, that we can afford to lose. This is truly an enormous opportunity for our organization. It's kind of a game changer for our company, if you will. And what I can promise you, and I think what you would find from our references, is that you all will get everything our organization has to offer. Accessibility to our entire leadership team, support from our organization. This would truly be a flagship location for us, and I'm not sure that other folks that are at the table for this opportunity could say the same thing. So we're really excited to have the opportunity to visit with you guys today. So I will turn it over to Josh.
Yeah, thanks, guys. My name is Josh Bain. I'm the Vice President of Operations for Quest, and I want to talk a little bit more just about what a Quest program looks like. Starting off, though, I wanted to highlight, we can go ahead and go to the next slide, a couple of notable partnerships that have some common ground with you all. Nick just referenced, we've been working out at Mahomet for a little over a month now. We entered into an emergency contract with them back, I believe March 6th was our first day. So just getting off the ground there, and have had a lot of early successes. As Nick mentioned, we had our first food committee today, and it was really exciting to hear student feedback on just how excited they are about the quality of the food that they're seeing. We were able to take their feedback and get back to the office, look at the menus, and make some immediate changes in response to that. And it's part of what really is a distinguishing factor for us as a company, is that ability to pivot very quickly and to tailor the program to the specific partnerships. We've also recently signed a contract with Bourbon A53, just up the road. We'll be starting there here in a few months. And we are closing out our first year at Eureka College. We really feel like this area of Illinois is an area of focus for us geographically. We feel like we've have a strong presence in Chicagoland, and feel like this is kind of the next step for us as a company. And to Nick's point, this would be a really flagship kind of location for us. J.S. Morton 201 is a high school district outside of Chicago that we've been at for a long time. It's got just over 8,000 students. They're actually exploring going CEP here in the near future. So we've been with them for a long time, seen a lot of participation growth and a lot of just exciting things happening there. And finally, I want to really highlight the Noble network of charter schools in the city of Chicago. We can go ahead and go to the next slide. We've been at Noble since last July, so we're closing out our first year of partnership with them. and entered into a contract with them because they were looking for a better quality program. The program there had maybe a little bit of COVID fatigue. A lot of those convenience kind of items that started during the pandemic were holding over, after maybe it made a lot of sense to continue offering those types of items. And they had seen a pretty sharp decline in participation and just lack of interest in the program. And we share a vision with the leadership there at the Noble Network for just good food. And really that's been our kind of primary two focuses at Noble have been on driving the quality of food by purchasing great ingredients and assembling them in ways that are attractive and that are what students want. And then we couldn't do that if we didn't have our second focus, which is on equipping the staff, the frontline staff, to be able to prepare the food, to do more scratch cooking. It's a lot of fun to go in and do trainings where we're teaching folks how to hold a chef knife and what the different types of cuts are, and kind of empowering them to put out a really great product that they can be proud of. And they've definitely got a product they can be proud of at Noble. We've got a couple pictures on the slide that were actually taken by one of our frontline employees that has kind of created her own Instagram feed of what they're offering each day out at the network. She has a lot of fun doing that. But a couple facts about Noble. We operate 16 locations there. 15 are traditional school locations, and then we have a daycare. It's just over 12,000 students. It's fully CEP at every location. So we've been here a year. We're serving in excess of 30,000 meals a day and have seen some really remarkable growth in participation, which I'll talk about here in a moment. Really, really proud of this last bullet, though. We've seen 95% staff retention. We went from a program where the staff was taking food out of the freezer, putting it in the oven, and then putting it directly onto serving lines. A tremendous amount of the food was prepackaged. They weren't even having to assemble any ingredients. We did trainings over the summer, which is part of our all of our partnerships, having some intentional training time, where we have both classroom and hands-on in the kitchen time with staff. And it's a lot of fun to work with the employees and give them a hands-on opportunity to try out what we're talking about doing. It's one thing to hear about the vision. It's something very, very different to actually do it. We had a great time doing that with the employees, got the staff to kind of catch a vision, create some excitement there. And I was out at Noble for our entire first week, visiting all the different schools, and it was really incredible to watch the students come through the line and visibly react in a positive way to what they were seeing. And our staff saw that, and it was a lot of fun and just really rewarding to get to see our frontline employees be proud of what they're putting out for the first time in a long time. And that's something that we see in a lot of our partnerships. And at Noble, we've seen really remarkable growth. So we're at a greater than 40% increase in participation year over year versus where they were last year. And we've cut out, there are none of the COVID flexibilities this year that they were able to take advantage of last year with taking meals home and things like that. So even in spite of the reduced flexibilities, we've seen a lot of growth. And that comes from, all the points that Nick talked about. It's us talking to students, seeing what they actually want, seeing what's working, and continue to replicate that. We've done a whole lot of grab and go type options like you have back here today at Noble, and students have responded remarkably positively. Speaking specifically to our kind of vision for Urbana, we feel like it's really important to support you all with a highly qualified, dedicated on-site team. So this is kind of an overview of the organizational chart. We've got the district manager at the top, and then the three positions directly beneath that are where I want to spend just a few moments. We would have an on-site food service director, of course, that's running the day-to-day operations, kind of making sure that the food service department is running well, that we're making smart business decisions, that we're engaging students effectively. And then below them, you'll see two kind of subject matter experts that I think would really help to vault this program forward. The first is a dedicated on-site district chef that would be really responsible for not only safeguarding the culinary kind of portion of the program, but also doing a tremendous amount of training and development of frontline staff. And functionally, I think that's where this person would spend the majority of their time, is being in the kitchens, working with our frontline employees, making sure that they're empowered and equipped to put out great food. The other side of the org chart there, we have an on-site dietitian. An account of this size, I think, needs someone on site that's specifically looking at nutrition and compliance day to day. That allows us to pivot quickly, to make adjustments to the menus and making sure that we're putting out fully compliant food. Nick said it, and I can't reiterate it enough. Our accounts don't use cookie cutter menus. We don't have corporate menus. The menu here would look very different than what we're doing at Mahomet or doing at Bourbonnais. And in fact, it may be that a school on one side of town in Urbana may be doing a different menu than one on the other side of town. We really want to meet the students where they're at and meet the needs of the community. That's just part of our DNA. It's something that we take for granted, and I think we forget to highlight sometimes how unique that is. Looking at the rest of the organizational chart, we've kept things fairly similar to where they're at now. We feel like the staffing model makes sense. It's important, of course, though, that we have all these positions filled, and part of that is making sure that we're paying a wage that's in line with the market here. And so that is part of what we've kind of built into our model for Urbana is a wage for the staff that we'll be able to bring folks in. What we've seen in Mahomet, just down the road, is that the pay of the former vendor was a huge barrier to being able to fill positions. And then it creates a scenario where you don't have enough employees in the buildings, and the employees that are there are burnt out, and it's kind of a vicious cycle. And so one of the key critical early parts of this partnership would be making sure that we're fully staffed and the staff is fully trained and able to do the work that we put in front of them. I think next up, we've just got a couple of pictures of food. It's really important that the food looks good, right? It needs to taste good, it needs to look good. Students are informed buyers. They know what they want on the food front, and it's important for us to offer food in an attractive way, which you can kind of see in some of the packaging over there. I'm going to go to the next slide. We've got some more examples of some grab and go kind of items. Yep. These are all taken at existing accounts. And then finally, and then you guys can stop having to listen to my voice. I want to talk briefly about food committees. This is my favorite thing that we do at Quest, is our food committee meetings. And these are meetings that are in a forum that's maybe slightly less formal than this, but we do bring in the students. We have an agenda. We work with the district administration to get a representative cross-section of students. So students that are participating in the meal program, but then also students that aren't. It's important to get their voices and to hear from them. We meet regularly, and just get a gauge for how they're perceiving the program. A lot of our recipes that we have in our database come from these meetings. They come from ideas that students have had. Things like there was a picture of a chia pudding parfait a couple slides ago. That came from a food committee at the Noble Network of Charter Schools. We were talking to those folks, and they asked for some options with chia, and so we got the culinary team together. We tested it out, and now it's part of our database. It's a lot of fun for them to see their ideas kind of coming to fruition and making their way onto the menus. At the elementary level, we also like to engage, parents, faculty, different stakeholders, in addition to the students. And then, of course, we do surveys, polls, things like that throughout the semester as well to make sure that we truly have student-driven menus. And that is the end of my spiel. Let Chris take over.
That's it? Just wanted to
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, real quick. Oh, sorry. Real quick, if you want to jump to the next one. Yeah, so this picture on the right, the gentleman up there, Anthony, one of our district managers, is holding a plaque. That's usually, we have a plaque done with the mission statement for the food committee, so that's something we can bring to each meeting. Sometimes students come in and out. They might not remember what the mission of the food committee is. You can see we've got the pieces of paper on the table where the students can kind of rank some of the options that we're trying. And then I just wanted to point out up in the top left there, the guy in the blue shirt's our owner, Mike. So this is something he's very actively involved in too, which I think sets a great tone for the rest of the organization.
So one of the things that we've heard in some of our conversations with the group here is a commitment or an interest in local purchasing. And it's something that is really near and dear to our hearts as well. I mean, great food, it starts with great ingredients, and the more we can find great ingredients and support the regional food networks, we're operating, kind of the double bottom line. And so, as you can see, in the group or the areas that we do work, we've built out a nice network of farms that we work with, and there are a number that we have on our list for this area, and we're excited to get started in Mahomet and Bourbonnais and hopefully Urbana to start to grow out the central Illinois region. And whether it's through an aggregator like CIPS or Piazza Produce in Indiana, or going directly to the local farms and, working out those logistical delivery issues and how much they can supply, those are things that we really enjoy doing and, feel like it really helps round out the program and make a great effort. So we hope in the very near future to see a lot more representation in the central Illinois area there.
Any last statements, Kitty? Board members, and any comments, questions?
I mean, I appreciate your presentation. I think we've seen a lot of folks trying to make food that looks good, so I appreciate the attention to detail and presentation that you brought for us here. I didn't get to try it all, but I think that you are, I'll speak for myself, you're speaking to my heart, bringing in local farmers. I know that's really important to our district, and I think a lot of people who live in the Champaign-Urbana community, so I hope that is something that, that continues to grow in your program, but also hopefully for our school district. So thank you.
Anyone else?
Can I, are you going to say anything, Paul?
I do have a couple questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
One is, I mean, the pictures you had look lovely, but I couldn't help but notice that seeing some of the things were held in plastic plastic containers. Is there an effort underway to track use of plastic and drive that down in serving?
Yes, for sure. So a lot of it is sort of predicated on the school. So one, is the school already using reusable trays, cutlery, et cetera? Do they have dish rooms and dish machines that are sized to be able to handle that? Two, if not, does their disposal partner work with composting, and or what kind of things do they accept from a recycling program standpoint? So those are things that we always want to work in tandem with the district to be able to tackle. We can easily do composting in the back of the house and even work with the third-party vendor if we have to. But ideally, we're working with the infrastructure that the district already has in place to minimize the use of those things. Some of the items that you saw up there that we displayed, some of the grab-and-go options and things of that nature, a lot of the districts we serve, unfortunately, they don't have dish machines that are sized to handle reusable trays or plates, and so we end up working with their disposal partner, on composting and recycling. So we really want to work with the district to make sure that we're designing a program that makes sense and not trying to make the food service employees, for example, wash 1,000 trays when they've got a dish machine that's sized to handle like 40 serving bins, if you will. And so those are things that we just have to work with the district on that sort of stuff for sure.
And this district, because of its SES numbers, qualifies for really reusable lunch for everybody in the district. Do you also have other districts you serve that fit the same criteria that we have?
For sure. So CEP would be the terminology that we would use for that. It's community eligibility provision. So the J.S. Morton School District, that was north of 8,000 students that Josh mentioned, is CEP. Noble School Network is CEP as well. We've got a few other smaller K-8 districts that we serve up in Chicagoland, some of which are even vended meals that we do CEP, so it's definitely something that we're very familiar with. And I'm sorry, Josh is our Vice President of Operations, and Chris is our Vice President of Business Development, so I don't think we introduced who we were.
That's on me. I should have also
no, that's all right.
with
that's
titles.
all right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Thank you for completing the introductions.
Yeah, for
but
sure.
I think Ann has a question.
No worries.
Oh yeah, that you actually just asked that one. So my second one was, we have a burgeoning farm to school program in this community that we are still working on, and it's building and growing in leaps and bounds. Can you see yourselves working with that program in the future for trying to get our own local produce and our own students and staff involved with the food prep and presentation and everything?
Yeah, the short answer is yes. That's something we're really excited about and passionate about as an organization, and have actually been having a lot of conversations very recently. It's a timely question about maximizing opportunities there. So absolutely, we're one additional benefit to partnering with one of the smaller guys like us. We're large enough to have some purchasing power, but we're not so large that we're completely shackled to contracts with national vendors. And so it allows us to do some micro purchasing and things like a farm to school program. So yes.
Or even, I mean, just collaboration, if our, Health and Wellness Committee came to you and theoretically and asked, we have some initiatives that we'd like to do with partnering, and, that you'd be willing and open to work with them and have, ongoing conversations. Because people in this community, myself included, really want healthy food, especially since we have the responsibility and the ability to feed everybody with this grant money. I want to make sure it's the best possible, and also to get the kids involved, because they really do like helping.
For sure. So I'll give you, if I can tell one quick story. I think it's one thing to say, oh yes, we'd love to do that. It's like interviewing, right? Well, what have we done? So there's a Orland Park 135 school district up in Chicagoland. So they got some grant money to do some additional programming with students this year. They approached us about doing some after-school culinary clubs with school students, and so it's even like outside of the lunch program, where the day-to-day program, where we're bringing in students at every one of their buildings. Now they've got, it's pretty cool. They have administration that's doing a monthly cooking club, and we're bringing our on-site culinary team to help facilitate some of that stuff. And so for the younger students, we might be teaching them like how to make healthy snacks at home out of simple ingredients and things of that nature, or where the food comes from, et cetera. And then for the older students, we're getting into some more complex recipes, things of that nature. So a lot of flexibility on that. And again, I think some of the things that Josh mentioned around like the nimbleness and the flexibility that we have to offer as a smaller company, I think we get excited about some of that stuff. Yeah.
I wanted to make a comment. I appreciate seeing so many slides related to student voice. So as you see, we have a student ambassador on our board. Katie, have you shared we had a recent survey completed by our high school students with over 300 responses. So I'm going to ask Katie to share those with you, just so you have that feedback. So as a CEP district, and as someone who spends a lot of time at our high school in the lunchroom, it's very disheartening to me when I see so many of our students that are not eating our lunch. And you'll see from the survey results why. So I'm not going to, go into all the negativity around that. But I am really encouraged to see so many opportunities for students to have voice in the menu, to have voice in the food options. I don't know if Parker wants to add anything. I know he was really looking at the slides as you were sharing them. Our other student ambassador is out today. But as a district, that student voice is very important to us. That really excites me, that is something that is important to you too, it sounds like. So
I would just comment that Quest did their homework and watched the last meeting
Oh, you
when I
watched the meeting
presented.
with
So
okay.
I think
Very
they
good.
saw that presentation as well.
Good. I don't know, Parker, did you want to say? I don't want to put you on the spot.
Well, I was just wondering, like earlier you were showing like the breakfast tacos and like the oatmeal and stuff, like, so would that, I'm assuming that's an entree, right? So would that be like a rotating menu? Would there be items that stay constantly, and like would there be sides? Would those be the same every day?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's something that we really tailor to. You kind of depend on the district. Typically, in a serving period like breakfast, we'll have one or more feature entrees that will rotate and change every day, and then we'll have some kind of constants. So something like a fruit and yogurt parfait, we typically offer every single day. Whereas something like a breakfast taco, maybe today we're doing a breakfast taco, and tomorrow we're doing a sausage, egg, and cheese muffin, or something like that. But really, that's going to depend on kind of student demand and the facilities. So.
Parker, that's just a sample menu that you would see for a week.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just if I can, really quick, in response to your comment about the student voice, I think it's super important to illustrate how, yes, it's a really lovely thing for us to do, and we do it, but we also do it, and I think it's important to state this because I think it underscores the importance of it. Students eating our food every day is what drives our financial success. And so it's one thing to do the things that are nice to do because they're nice to do, but it's another thing for us to do it because our company's life sort of depends on it. We are not the type of organization that generates a lot of additional profit centers through things like rebates on food purchases and all these other things that a lot of folks in our industry do. We make money if students eat. If they don't eat, we don't make money. We don't have other revenue streams that come in. We do not have other revenue streams coming in. And so I just want to I feel like it's really important to say that because it's one thing if I'm in your shoes, I'm going, well, that's probably nice. They probably do that once a year and they're showing us a picture of it and then it goes away after the first year. No, if students aren't eating, we don't make any money. Like there's no other place that it's coming from. And so I just want to share how important that is to us beyond just it being something that we feel like we want to do because it's a nice thing to be able to talk about in a process like this.
And I appreciate you saying that because that is 110% what we have been kind of saying too all year. So.
One last chance for questions or comments, board members and student ambassador.
I'm just going to say one thing. I appreciate your honesty. When we get salespeople, like you don't usually buy always what people are selling. Like you're selling us pretty, pretty straight. I appreciate that. So thank you.
Of course. Thank you.
All right, that's it. Thank you. We'll move on with our agenda. We do have a consent agenda tonight. 11.1 are our minutes for our March 21st business meeting, March 22nd special meeting at noon, March 22nd special meeting in the evening, March 23rd special meeting, March 27th special meeting, March 28th district teacher parent advisory committee meeting, and our April 4th study session. 11.2 are our bills, checks, for February, March. Our Ed Fund bills for $1.6 million, O&M Fund bills for $140,000, Transportation Fund bills for $1.5 million, Working Cash Bonds for $105,000, Tort for $48,000, Payroll, Salary, and Benefits for nearly $4.7 million, Urbana Adult Education for February, March for $128,000. 11.3 were various personnel items. 11.4 is interfund loans from the working cash to transportation in the amount of $200,000. We've already approved 11.5. 11.6 is the appointment of school treasurer to approve Dr. Preston L. Williams Jr. as the school treasurer for the next school year at a salary of $5,200. 11.7 is appointment of school auditor, so we're requesting approval for Forvis LLP as auditors for the 22-23 audit with a fee of $49,900, which is a $3,700 increase over the prior year. There will also be a $2,500 fee for the Illinois Community College Board Adult Education Literacy Grant audit. 11.8 is a resolution authorizing and directing the sale or disposal of personal property in accordance with state law. Does anybody wish to remove any of these stated consent agenda items off of the consent agenda? Hearing none, the chair would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as read.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any further comments or discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Member Hassanadka?
Yes.
Member Hall?
Yes.
Member Orr?
Yes.
Member Ogalski?
Yes.
Member Carter votes yes. Vice President Exum? Yes. And President Pulaski?
Yes. 12.1 are our gifts. The district received the following donations valued at $1,900 from the estate of Mark Corkins. Oplic Clearview with Flex Arm, F22 Nitro rolling walker with seat, script talk, and 2 medical bathroom safety shower benches. Esteemed estate sales, USD 116 retirees Becky Prather and Chris Sherrick facilitated the donation. Jonathan Ashley donated $100 to the Urbana High School Boys Tennis Program. Rotary Charities Foundation Urbana donated $1,000 to the Urbana High School Interact Club. Michael Finoglio donated $1,000 to the Evelyn Burnett Underwood Instrumental Assistance Program. Henry Ando donated 2 clarinets valued at $2,800 to the Urbana School District Band Program. And the following donated a total of $2,500 to the library at M.L. King Junior Elementary School. David Adcock, Juliana Arazi, Befar Ashrazi, Sandy Beek, Kay Bell, Connie Eldridge, Pat Guthrie, Judy Hadel, Sherry Herbert, Jennifer Hickson, Anna Haho, Maggie Kinnaman, Judy Legg, Debbie Malone, Kathy McClellan, Meg Miller, Elizabeth Pitsley, Gloria Rayner, Yvonne Vitoski, and Terry Welsh. This donation is in memory of Eunice Weish, former USD 116 teacher and librarian. Is there a motion to accept the gifts and send out thank yous to the givers?
So moved. Oh, second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? 12.2 is an action item to reject a bid on 205 North Race School District property. So we received a non-responsive bid in our last bid opening to sell this building. So is there a motion to reject the bid that is inactionable?
So moved.
So moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
I have a quick comment. I just wanted to let everyone that's watching know that the bid was non-responsive because it did not meet the minimum sales price, and it did not include the other required submittals, including a signed contract and an earnest money check.
Thank you for the clarification, Katie. Any further comments or questions? Roll call, please.
Member Hasanadka?
Yes.
Member Hall?
Yes.
Member Orr?
Yes.
Member Ogalski?
Yes.
Member Carter votes yes. Vice President Exum? Yes. And President Pulaski?
Yes. 12.3 is a letter, approval of a letter of intent with Venergy LLC for energy-related projects. So I guess a quick discussion about that.
Don't you have to do?
I guess is there
discussion?
right? Is there a motion to approve this letter of intent?
So they can discuss.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. So now we are allowed to discuss.
All right, thanks, Paul. So I'll invite Gordon, and you'll have to introduce your guest. I don't know him, from Verigy. We have been talking solar for a very, very long time in our district. Even since John Dimmitt was on our board, it was something that he was very passionate about, and we have never had the opportunity or the foresight to actually move in this direction, but we are talking about it now. Gordon has been, I guess, courting us for about a year, maybe a little longer, and coming and talking to us about the benefits of solar, and most recently the Thomas Paine and Wiley projects, because they are both going to have new roof surfaces. It really did make more sense to us to really be thoughtful about moving in this direction. So I know I didn't have them on as a formal presentation, but based on some of the questions that I've received from board members and from community members from the public, we thought it might be in all of our best interest to have Gordon share some of the numbers, the budget impacts for us, the rebates, a little bit. I know one of our board members asked a question about geothermal, which I share with Gordon. So it isn't a very long, it isn't a formal administrative topic presentation, but more so in response to some of the questions that we've received. So Gordon.
All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Ivory Tatum. My name is Gordon Schweitzer, and this is Bob Smith, my boss, so feel free to say nice things about me. But we don't have any pictures of food tacos, but we're going to talk about solar and roofs tonight, which to me looks about the same. And so we're going to keep this really short in the interest of time. And our focus is on solar, primarily at Thomas Paine, which has some new roof projects going on, and primarily at Wiley, which is part of the ongoing conversation about that area. And I do want to brag, our project manager who will be working on the project is a graduate of Wiley. So he would be super close to home to work on. I know it would mean a lot to Jim be part of the project if after letter of intent, after we do all the engineering and get all the local bids and local material suppliers, if you decide to move forward. But this is just the first step that allows us to explore solar feasibility and to get more information to be able to provide that to you. Page 2 here, this is just a utility overview. So one thing that's top of mind for a lot of people is ongoing rises in utility cost. And just within the last few years at this district, there has been quite a large raise, especially in electricity pricing. The first number, the $1.2 million, is for most of the buildings, not as many as the second current fiscal year budget, but nearly all the buildings, just a little bit under $1 million in electricity cost. This year, the district is projecting to spend roughly 1.32 million. So that's just a 30% or so increase in utility spend. We're looking at other things besides solar and roofing, but one item we're looking at is kind of low-hanging fruit and how can we commission some of the spaces across the district to be as energy efficient as possible, on the intent to take these savings and put them back into the district for other things, whether it be food services, teacher salaries, other curriculum and needs. So the intent is to take some of these operating costs and move them elsewhere. So our taco picture here, this is Wiley, and one thing that's really neat about this one on the picture on the right is our it's kind of our solar modeling tool. Those green circles are trees. So one thing we do want to take into account is the tree height and everything. But one thing that's really neat is potentially this project, as it evolves, may decide to go geothermal. But really we're just looking at the existing footprint of the space. The roofing does need to be addressed. So our approach to this is subcontracting the roof as part of our solar project, so that if there ever is a roof leak when the solar is on top of it, the district can call one person, that would be our team, to take care of the roof leak, whether it's related to the solar system or the roof. But our approach here is refurbishing it, so it would look at like the bottom left picture. It would be a white coating. We would take all the wet insulation off of the roof. It adheres pretty well right now, so there really isn't a need to do a full roof tear off, which you previously had a budget for. So our suggestion would be to save some of that funds, refurbish the roof so it's 20 to 30 years from a watertight standpoint, and then maximize the solar that you can put on the roof. One thing I do want to point out is that our modules would be domestic content. What that means, they're made in the USA, and that provides more grant dollars back to the district. And this is Thomas Paine here. This is just a great time to put solar on the roof as the roof is brand new. We're not in that 10 to 15 to 20 year kind of no man's land where you don't want to take off the modules just a couple of years after the system has been installed. One of the questions we received was, since we just did geothermal, is it a good time to do solar? It may be the best time to do solar, largely because the district has committed to an electric heavy heating and cooling system, geothermal, and now you would be able to utilize all the solar, state, federal, and local incentives to provide power for your very efficient geothermal system. So you're renewable already with ground source heat pump system, then adding solar on top of it to power the system would even take it a step further. So that's certainly in line with a lot of the sustainability initiatives that you have. One thing I'm not going to mention, it's one of the things that are pretty cool from a student getting the word out there standpoint, is on an annual basis, or 15-minute basis, each location will have a display right when you walk in the building that will let people know how much solar is being generated, how many trees we're planting today, how much CO2 we're offsetting, what's the return on investment. So fully transparent with all the incentives, the production, how the system is performing. And we track it on a daily basis. But just to give you an idea of the return on investment, this chart you have in front of you, apologize for some of the numbers being a little smaller, but working left to right, the green categories are either savings, voided cost, or new solar rebates or grants. The yellow columns are project cost, and then the blue is cumulative, so the net of cost and savings. Working left to right, the first column is the solar generation, so these are 30-year warranted modules. So for 30 years, they would generate power that would be used on site. Ameren has incentives that we would capture. A big driver for a lot of these projects is the Inflation Reduction Act, which can essentially change the tax code to allow districts to receive a direct reimbursement. A lot of districts have done power purchase agreements in the past because they were not able to qualify for the investment tax credit. But with this recent change, that is driving a lot of solar nationwide. It is a limited fund, but we highly recommend that the district take advantage of this big incentive because it can offset up to 40% or more of the project cost. Like we mentioned, Wiley does need a roof upgrade, so that is cost that is in this project, and then that saves the district from doing a full roof tear off. A major program is also the Illinois Adjustable Block Program. That is the solar renewable energy certificate column. All of these together equal about $2.5 million of new savings, solar revenue, and rebates back to the district. So 2.5 million of roughly 3.1 million is quite a lot of potential dollars back to the district. So pretty short payback in terms of cumulative funds in this cash flow, projecting around $2.3 million in 30-year warranty life of the roof and the solar systems. So after year 30, since the modules are still there, they're producing at about 85% capacity. So this chart would go longer if it could, but we cut it off at 30 years. So we try to be brief. I'm sorry I talk fast, but
No,
thanks for
thank
your
you,
time
Gordon.
and
I
attention.
appreciate it. Katie, did you want to add anything before?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment that we're working with Stiefel to finance this. Once we have more of the final design and the final numbers, I've already gotten some projections from Stiefel. One of the nice things that I've learned from Gordon and Vergy and Ann from Noble is that the incentives and the rebates, we can only use our sales tax funding and our working cash bonds. We can only use those really for facilities projects, but these rebates can come back into operating dollars. So it's a real great thing that we could leverage 30 to 40% of rebates that can come back. Now, a lot of districts will use those to help make the payment or make the project, fund the project. But that's a decision that we can make once we have the cost information. And so one of my ideas, and that I've kind of worked with Ann on, is potentially the Ameren rebate and the Inflation Reduction Act rebates, having those come back into the ed fund or into the operating funds. But then utilizing the solar renewable energy credits that come over those first 6 years to help offset if we had to issue a debt certificate or something like that, in addition to any other sales tax funding that we could potentially make those payments with. The other thing that I wanted to say about that is, it was on the tip of my tongue and I forgot. It'll come back.
Well, thank you, Katie. That's interesting news. Any questions from board members? Go ahead, Robbie.
Just to clarify, you said, the payment for the solar panels will come from the facilities funds?
So the actual payment for the
Yeah.
installation will likely be, hopefully, is kind of what I'm planning, will be a debt certificate issuance that will be funded with, the payback will be funded with sales tax revenues and with these rebates, the solar renewable energy credits. So that'll be a combination for the payback of the debt certificate. So we'll issue a debt certificate to do the construction, which is, around $3 million here in this column. And then we'll pay that back over a period of time using a portion of this, all of this funding, and a portion of our sales tax dollars. And you just reminded me what I was going to say. So that 67%, like the board does 2/3 towards debt service and 1/3 towards pay-as-you-go. But because we've seen that increase in our sales tax funds over the last couple of years with inflation and everything happening, we're not really even leveraging that full 67%. And so there's already a little bit of room right there that we weren't even counting towards that 20 million for Wiley, for the debt service for Wiley for doing the bond issue for the renovations and the addition. So there's already a little bit of room there too for that debt certificate. And then if we leverage these SREC credits against it too, it'll be fine. So I'll work with Ann more on that once we have final figures from Vergy's design, but that's kind of the plan. It takes about 45 days to issue debt certificates, so it's really fast turnaround time that we can work with the board on.
So just to clarify then, the debt certificate is what buys the panels and installation, but then the rebates will then go to the ed fund.
That would be the intention. The Ameren Smart rebate and the Inflation Reduction Act rebate, yes.
And let's say they were fully built today, what would we expect to get in rebates in the next year?
$1 million in Inflation Reduction Act and $200,000 in Ameren rebates.
So $1.2 million.
Ish, right? Because you were saying this is closer to 30, but in the end, when it's designed, it might be closer to 40.
Correct. So the lowest level is 30%. And if you use domestic content, it goes up to 40%. And then if you use a tax-exempt municipal loan, it gets a 15% haircut, so it jumps down to 34, I believe that is. So we're finalizing this. We're hoping this is our intent, and our commitment is to be within plus or minus 10% of what we've presented today, while we finalize the design, engage local labor, and finalize all these numbers and get back to you.
Oh, I was going to say, so with the possibility of the ed fund being negative balanced in the future years without doing this, this is a way, it seems, to offset that.
For 1 year, yes.
Oh, just for 1 year.
Right, because this is only a one-time savings, so doesn't help with the operating deficit, but it would help get us through another year.
All right. Then I'll also say, I really don't like the idea of proposing this all in one day and approving it at the same time. And in fact, motioning to propose it before we virtually heard any single word about it. So I don't like that.
I can comment on that as well. So this is just a letter of intent to enter into design, and there'll be a contract that comes subsequently. And we worked with our attorneys to review the letter. The only amount that we would pay is the amount for the actual cost to date for the design services. So we're not making a commitment to do anything other than do the design work at this time.
This would allow us to get to hard numbers, actual subcontractors from local community, and do all the final engineering. So if you would elect not to, it's not, I mean, our cost is much higher than that, but we're kind of splitting it. So if you would decide not to go ahead, you would pay us $18,000. But this way, we know exactly what it is. And, if you have some interest, this is the time, because these funds, the investment or the Inflation Reduction Act and the SREC, those will eventually go away. Even the domestic content right now is 40% each year. That ratchets up. So if you have interest, this is a good time. But it's your decision.
Right. Anyone else? Ann?
Just quickly, for the board members who were here a few years back when we talked about this last, my memory's foggy, but we talked about the possibility of solar a while ago, I remember, and I thought that one of the things that was a sticking point for us was that the cost of the equipment, that you have to buy up front, and with this technology developing constantly and changing really quickly, it's not like in the old days when you would install a heater or water heater or whatever, and you'd keep it knowing that it would be there for 10, 20 years. It's like every few years things get updated, right? So if we purchase the equipment, are we going to be guaranteed to get upgrades for free or for a discount? And, as technology improves, are we going to be able to move with that? Are we stuck with the same solar panels for the next, 30 years or whatever? And I think we talked about that. I'm trying to remember what
It's fuzzy. I'm trying to pull back the memory of this. But this was from several years ago prior. We were participating in a state and federal program that would allow us to install some solar. And the financing was dependent on a federal program that went away basically after the 2016 election cycle.
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
So it kind of fell apart after that.
Yeah. But I mean, with new incentives and stuff, especially coming out from the federal government, I'm hoping that we'd be able to capture those even after we've started doing this. I mean, just hearing about how the government wants to go to carbon neutrality by 2050, and that kind of thing. So I'm thinking, well, if we lock into this now, can we still keep getting the benefits? I mean, besides the obvious benefits. Katie's got her mouth full.
One thing that I was kind of excited about is that we're kind of starting small. We're taking our 2 newest roofs and testing this out, working with Verigy. And so, yeah, I think that we will be able to have opportunities to see what other incentives the government comes up with, because we have a lot of other buildings. So hopefully this is a starting point to getting our district more efficient. And, you know, I'm much more comfortable with putting an installation on a brand new roof than, you know, starting big and putting it on all of our roofs. But that way we can kind of see what the economy does and see what the government does with as far as, you know, net neutrality and all of that. And yeah, I think they'll continue incentivizing these things, and as that changes, hopefully we'll be able to come up with something else to do.
And then just one last quick question contingent on that, that's probably more for Randy. Do you know that there are many companies locally who know how to service these? And I'm thinking worst case scenario, we have terrible storms or tornado or something comes through and something gets damaged. Do we have to wait for their technology people to come out, or do we have people locally who can help work on stuff?
I believe our first call goes back to Verigy and then they would contact the local people, and there are plenty of local
we have a
people.
service team that takes care of it.
Our own employees.
Okay, I mean, I know, because it's growing, there's more people in the community
you
who
are
are
correct.
getting it, but, you know,
Yep.
it's still a new technology for a lot of people, so, thank you.
Good questions.
So I have two, I think, one for Katie, one for you. I'll ask you first, which is just a sense of, you know, whenever you are looking at a 30-year commitment, are y'all going to be around in 30 years? Like, where have you been? What?
Good
you
questions.
know?
Yeah. We should have introduced ourselves a little bit better, but we've been around since 2000. We have an office here in Champaign-Urbana area, one in Indianapolis, St. Louis, Chicago, Carlinville, and we've done a lot of big projects in the area. We did all the geothermal systems at Rantoul. We did a couple of solar projects down in Tolono. We've probably done about $70 million worth at Lakeland College over the last 20 years or so since we started. So we've been in the business a long time, and kind of a word-of-mouth kind of company. So stand behind our work and really get more work by reputation. So we'll stand behind this project, and that's part of why Bob is here.
And I can add, the district has worked with Verigy, remind me, it was
CTS Group.
CTS,
Yep.
yes. When Dr. Williams was here, we had a performance contract with, and Carol Baker, and it was a great working relationship, and it sounds like everything went really well from what we've heard, so.
All right.
There was a, if I could make just a quick comment, there was a really good question about technology changing, but this is the latest technologies. These are the best panels, or it's a bifacial panel, which means you pick up sun from above and below, so it reflects off your new roof, and so, you know, you're gonna get really good quality, and it's gonna last a long time, and it will be serviced by our team. So.
All right, my second question is that you had just said it's on the two newest roofs, but I'm completely confused with I get at Thomas Paine. I don't entirely understand the Wiley thing, because it sounds like almost like you're gonna cover it with some sort of membrane and then stick it on, which is not a new roof. So is there A, risk to that, and B, if we're talking renovation, if we're talking, we don't know what we're doing with the building, is it in our best interest to put solar panels on a building that we're not sure what's happening with, and the roof is not fully being replaced? So help me.
I am still going to refer to Verigy on that, because they assessed the roof. So I'm going to let them talk more about the actual process and what their proposal is for the roof itself.
Good question. John, do you mind going back a few slides? Great question. So, as mentioned earlier in the night, Wiley is a great candidate. Part of what we do is refurbish a roof that needs replacement and then put solar on top of it, so that the solar and then all the incentives and new revenue that comes from the solar system can offset the roof cost. So it's with solar, you either want to put it at the very beginning of the roof, or replace or upgrade the roof and then put solar on top of it. So given the interest in solar and the age of needing to do an upgrade at Wiley with that roof system, it was one of the options that we've talked about. So this saves dollars on ripping off the roof and then taking all the insulation and putting it in a landfill and then putting in new insulation. So this provides just general cost savings versus the alternatives, as well as putting solar on top of it. So, but good question though.
So it's an overlay as opposed, so no tear off and put back on, just
Correct.
put a new roof over the top of the old one.
Right, which would, the full tear-off would be much more expensive and wouldn't give you any more value because we are still warranting it. And there's two different coatings, there's a 20-year and a 30-year warranty. So we would make that recommendation as part of our study. But yeah, because you've got still good insulation on most of it, we've done like core sampling. We use infrared scans to see if the insulation's wet. If it is, we replace that piece, but the roof itself is still good. And then there's a liquid membrane coating. Use a company called Tremco, which is the best quality you can buy, and they warranty that, and we stand behind it. So it's, you could do the full tear off, but you wouldn't really get any more benefit, no more savings, just more cost.
All right, maybe last question, more minutia here. Oh.
Your other,
Oh,
part of your question that they can't answer.
Yes.
Is no matter what we end up doing, we are still gonna be utilizing the building. So, we'll still be using energy and hopefully still saving money by having solar there.
I'm thinking more from a design perspective
Yes.
because I don't understand. I'm not I'm not an anything expert
Yes.
actually. So, but when you're putting solar panels on, if you're building up and you're shading and you're like,
Yep.
that, it seems to me that you really need to know where's the best place to put these. And if we don't have a design for building, is there any risk to putting solar panels on a building and then changing the design of building?
Not really unless you're gonna put a second story on that building.
Well,
but not really keep-
Are you done, Brian?
I guess I might just comment that I've also talked to Scott Wachter about how this project fits with the overall, Wiley reno and or addition and all of that. And they're very comfortable working with Verigy. They've worked with them on other projects. So they'll work in tandem together when it gets to that phase of the project with the addition and whatever, that it'll all mesh together. So there was no concerns at all coming from IGW as far as this piece of the project and working with Verigy on it.
Are you done?
It was minutia, I think, that I can get around. So you go
Okay,
ahead.
mine's kind of small too, I guess. In terms of our current building insurance, if will this be covered under our existing policies for hail and weather and such things? And if so, do we expect to see any increases because the value of these is higher than a typical roof?
We have a meeting with our insurance broker next week, so I will ask all of those questions and report back.
Anyone else?
Is there asbestos in the roof? And by just covering with a membrane, are we leaving it there?
I don't know if they done
They have not inspected the roof for asbestos yet.
I don't know that they've done that yet.
It doesn't have to be inspected because if they were to do the roof tear off, they would do that company would have the licenses and everything and do the proper procedure to get that taken care of. I don't recall anything in the past reports that we got that says there is any, but I'm not sure. We don't know.
And as part of our technical study, we'd actually take core samples from the roof that we would be recovering and see if there were any issues, but as long as it was encased, it'd be all right. But we do the infrared scans, you can even do, the next level up is a nuclear scan to see what's under there, but we do pull core samples when we have areas that, we suspect might be an issue. And at that time, we would check and see if there's any asbestos or any other material in there.
Yeah, I mean, now I would just like to be reminded or clarification, like initially, well, we know the roof is leaking, correct? Yes? Okay. And the idea initially was to completely do a full tear off and replace with a similar, does it have a rubber roof kind of thing going on right now? Yes?
There is a rubber roof on it, yes.
Okay. And so alternatively, we would not have to do a full tear off now.
They would take out they would do their testing and take out any wet insulation, replace the insulation there, and then the material that they would use is actually thicker than the rubber roof that we would put on it. Do you have you know what those specs were?
I think it's 156 mil versus a
Finished.
60 finished,
Versus-
correct? Yeah,
versus
a
60.
60 or
Just
And
a
that's
rubber roof.
only in conjunction with solar additionally on top of that, or is that now a roof option for the Wiley remodel?
Right.
If
So
we
It's a
don't.
roof option.
I was gonna say that's been a roof option all along.
Okay.
IGW's estimate was for a full tear off because that was the most conservative estimate.
Okay.
But they would have done the same analysis and core sampling and everything to go into that project to decide what they needed to spec for. And doing an overlay with an additional membrane would have been an option if that's what was called for in the analysis. So they've already done some pre-analysis and determined that that's the best course of action, and frankly, Scott agreed with that and thought it was in pretty good condition.
you know, one thing to note too, from a lead time standpoint, if there is interest in moving this project along, the insulation does have a very long lead time. New insulation, you wouldn't think. New insulation does, so we'd be able to avoid having to do that and show progress and doing the roof remodel work, if that is part of the criteria.
All right, any other questions?
Just a pragmatic question. We are voting right now on an $18,000 assessment. Is that what we're approving right now? Just so I know what
It's-
cost are we actually agreeing to now versus what is here.
Yeah, in the last paragraph of the letter of agreement where it talks about the cost, it is a not to exceed amount of $18,000 for actual costs incurred for out-of-pocket design and engineering costs. So if they don't exceed that, then we wouldn't pay that.
And if you would go ahead, that 18,000, which is required engineering, would just be, part of the project. But it was just if you said, well, we don't think we will at this time, that would.
And so you expect a full decision to come back to the board in about 45 to 60 days, is that correct?
I think we're hoping to bring the contract at the June 6th meeting. Is that right, Gordon? That's our goal, or
that's your
sooner
schedule.
if it's prepared, but it'll probably take about that long.
To Robbie's point, that's why we're doing both things in one meeting, is so we don't have to have a special meeting in July, since the board is not here in July. So there is a time factor in regard to being able to get that information back to you by our last meeting in June, which is why we're doing both things tonight.
All right, any further comments or questions? Tori, giving you an opportunity, no, okay. There is a motion that's been moved and seconded on the floor. We'll move to a roll call vote if there's no further discussion. Okay, roll call, please.
Member Hasnatka?
No.
Member Hall?
Yes.
Member Orr?
Yes.
Member Ogalski?
Yes.
Member Carter votes yes. You said Vice President Exum is off?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And President Pulaski?
Yes, thank you. Thank you guys for your patience tonight, too.
Our pleasure. Thank you very much.
Okay. 12.4 is to approve a new activity account for UMS. This would be the Garden Committee, Garden Club. Is there a motion to approve this new activity account?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded twice. Any further comments or discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Member Hasnatka?
Yes.
Member Hall?
Yes.
Member Orr?
Yes.
Member Ogalski?
Yes.
Member Carter votes yes. Vice President Exum?
Yes.
And President Pulaski?
Yes, and now it's time for a superintendent's report.
Okay. Okay, so So I am starting tonight. My plan, I know information has been shared. I sent an email to the board about the facilities committee that clearly has been shared with people in the community. So our plan tonight was to talk a little bit about the screening process, talk a little bit more about the composition of the committee, and then the board will have some time to discuss everything that I'm going to share, but I would ask that I be able to get through the information that I want to share. We can pause if you want, Paul, and discuss, or, and I can go through I guess the rest of the superintendent report is pretty short, so we'll just do it all at once. So I did want to just give some perspective. I know there have been a lot of comments about the size of the committee and the number of members in the committee. So just to go back and give you numbers for some of our previous board charged just district committees. So our 2008-2009 committee existed of 12 people. Very few were parents and staff. The majority of the people on this committee were city developers, people who work for the city of Urbana, and some real estate folks. So that was the committee that originally developed the plan for renovating the schools. They went around to all the different schools, and that is where we kind of developed our model for remodeling and the timeline of how we were going to remodel all the elementary schools. And basically the scope of a new gym, multi-purpose room, fine art spaces. And then we had a 2011-2012 redistricting committee, and I know that is not, but they weren't specifically talking facilities, but it was a board charged committee that consisted of 23 members, 2 parents from every elementary, the principal from every elementary school, a realtor, board members, and central office staff. Then our most recent facilities committee consisted of 17 members. Again, mostly city developers, realtors, city employees, 2 board members, a student, and then a very small number of parents and teachers. So I just wanted to give some perspective on past committees. The scope of what we're doing here is significantly larger, and I would say much more inclusive of our actual stakeholders by having more parents and teacher involvement than any of these other committees has had in the past. The screening process. So I know there have been a lot of comments on email, comments in the Wiley Strong group regarding my cherry picking people and my picking and choosing the people that I want to be on the committee. And that is not how this committee was set up, or that was never the intent from the very beginning. We've never done any of our district committees like that. There's always been an application process. So just to share a little bit more with the public, to just share maybe some misinformation that has been put into the community. So the survey was scheduled to close on Wednesday. As you know, we put the survey link in lots of different spaces, so it was available to many, many people. We allowed a little additional time. Our first meeting is scheduled for April 25th. So, you know, backwards mapping that, we did not have, 3 or 4 weeks to leave the survey open. So we were actually able to leave it open for 2 weeks, 2 weekends and 2 weeks. We extended it to Friday to give people a little more time to indicate their interest. The interest forms are currently being screened. They were due today, but again, because it just closed on Friday, I'm giving the screening team, I'd say, more time, and some of them really wanted to be part of this process, but we're extending that for additional days. So they are due tomorrow. So there are parents, teachers, and administrators who are screening. I am not participating in the screening process. We developed a anonymous form. Many of the people that I approached about screening were a little hesitant because of some of the comments and things that have been being shared here via public comment as well as on social media. So several staff members who are participating in the screening process, I did guarantee them that we would not be releasing their names. The screening is being done blind, so everyone who is participating in the screening process is doing so without any names. They all received a unique code, which is how we have been sending out most of our surveys recently. The code is anonymous even to us. We had one of our parents email John and I this afternoon and said, hey, I think I submitted that. Can you check to see if I submitted it properly? And John and I have no way of doing that because we don't know that person's code. So that person would have had to send us their code, and then we would have to go in and see if they were able to submit. So again, it is a very anonymous process for the screeners as well. We created a Google form, electronic kind of form that they are using to go in and rate, and they're rating the questions based on the availability of if you can participate and be at all the dates and what value you bring to the committee, and some of the questions very specifically that people responded to in the survey. I don't know if anyone here actually looked at the survey and saw some of the questions. We created a rubric using a 4-3-2-1 scale that screeners are using as educators. That's what we do. We create rubrics, and it also helps take out the subjectivity in guessing, and either you responded to the question in this way or you didn't. And then each screener is rating how people have responded in that form that we created. So a little bit more about the main topic of the evening. Most people who came tonight wanted to have this information, and some of them were already privy to it, so now we can share it with everyone. So just so the board knows, we had 41 parents, teachers, staff, and community members from across the district who responded to the interest form. So that was great. 41, I think, is more than we've ever had, and it really is very much a cross-section of lots of people from Wiley, and teachers, support staff, community people. One of our goals is to have this be a well-rounded committee, as we've talked about, and as you can see from this list, we want to make sure that we have a lot of elementary voice, we want parent voice, staff member voice, community voice as well. So this is the breakdown. So once we receive all of the anonymous screening forms, each form is going to generate a total composite score, and basically then what we will do is take that total score and break it out by this ratio. I know there is a lot of concern about Wiley people not being more represented, maybe more so in the parent group, but we do have Wiley staff members who have completed the form. So there is again, not seeing the rating forms, and I don't want to be accused of doing something unethical, but again, I did see the surveys as they came in, so I do know that there were Wiley teachers who participated, and of course there are several Wiley staff members. And then there are community people who participated who are also connected to Wiley. So while the top bullet, the 2 parents from each school, seems very restrictive, there are other areas where there might be Wiley people representing the Wiley community, while they may not be just a parent, if that makes sense. So if you add all those numbers up, There are 33 spots available out of those 41 that responded. So this is the group of people who have been invited to participate, who we did not ask to complete the survey. So we hope to have 2 board members. There was a notion in the community that the parent liaisons, when that information was shared, were dual language parent liaisons. We actually have 2 district parent liaisons. We have a Latino parent liaison and a African American parent liaison who have been invited, who represent the district, not just dual language. We have UEA representatives, and of course I am still, we have a couple of people who are interested in co-chairs. We don't have a final yes yet, but there are several who are contemplating it, talking to their partners. It is a huge time commitment because the co-chairs will do a lot of the agenda planning. So it's an additional time commitment for the co-chairs. And so we did not ask co-chairs to complete the survey, so they are not counted in that 33 number, but the co-chairs who are considering are both parents. UEA representatives and building principals. Our elementary principals are participating. Dr. Heinhorst has removed her name and is not wanting to be part of the committee, but we have invited the middle school principal as well. All district committees, I know this may not be what some people want to hear, but we don't have district planning committees without our building principals represented, because we expect our building principals to lead these initiatives, to take information back to the buildings, and to help us spread the word and be part of the process. So to exclude our building principals is not something that is anything that I would ever bring forward to the board. We have district administrators, 6, who are basically directors, so that would include people like Dr. Caffey and Catherine, because she's going to help us with promoting, and we're going to have some engagement opportunities, hopefully through the process where we would get information out as the committee is working. So that 6 includes Deion Webster. She is our district family engagement person. So that 6 includes district directors. Well, then we also have, as part of that central office number that has been shared, 5 district administrators who would be considered non-voting. That would be people like Randy and Katie and John and Kim. I know it feels like, or the comments that I've heard about administrators being part of this process, well, I hate to say this, folks, but the administrators are the ones that are going to be doing most of the work. We don't ask our co-chairs to give up hours and hours and hours of their time. And a lot of the information that we need in between meetings, they would not have access to. So when we're looking at student data, when we're looking at racial demographics, when we need to pull numbers of how many butts we have sitting in chairs in specific classrooms or grade levels, that information is at the fingertips of our district administrators. And so they need to be part of this process. However, as we have done in the past, they don't have to all be voting members. So just like we did with the dual language committee, myself, Dr. Norton, Dr. Wiemelt, and Lupe Ricconi, we helped facilitate that group, but the 4 of us never voted in any of the recommendations that were brought forward. Any of the recommendations that we took to the committee, we did not vote in those spaces, and we would also have these 5 district administrators would also not be voting members, but they would be part of the process because they need to help with data collection and sharing data and all those things that district administrators are paid to do. So this would include 27 additional invited members. So the size of this committee is large. I know I've had a few large district committees like this with teachers, you know, when we were doing our remote learning planning committee. And some of those other committees, we've had, you know, 40, 50 people. But to have 60 people outside of, you know, with a lot of people who are outside of the scope of the purview of the district is going to be challenging. But we're up to the challenge, and we're going to do everything that we can to make this experience the best that we can for these 60 folks. I think that's one of the reasons we're having such a hard time getting co-chairs to agree to do this. As you saw tonight, some of the comments and some of the things that are shared, you know, if someone takes on this responsibility, not only is it going to be a time and effort commitment on their part, it is also going to be challenging to have their name bandied around in some of the decisions that might be made moving forward. So we don't want them bearing the brunt of any of that. That's why we have district administrators on this committee, because if people are going to be mad and angry, we want them to be mad and angry at us, not at our people who are giving up their time and energy to help be leaders of this work. So we're going to do the best that we can to make the process ethical, clear, transparent. Having a public meeting with 60 committee members is going to be a challenge, but we are going to do the best that we can and utilize spaces at UMS to make that happen. I also wanted to share, so we took that information that you just saw in those last two slides and created basically a couple of pie charts that might make it a little easier for you to visualize. I'm a visual learner, so if you're a visual learner, this might help you as well. So if you think about those 60 people, 33% of them will be parents, 25% of them will be teachers, 30% will be administrators, and almost 12% will be other, and that will include the district liaison, the board members, the community members are included in that group of others. Again, another way to look at the makeup of the group, just so to also give another visual. So if you, sorry, I have to look at this on my screen. So that 30%, we kind of have the blue is where that chart kind of starts to wrap around. So that blue is, the biggest part is elementary, because again, we're really talking about a big impact at the elementary level. We are talking about impacts to possibly UMS. That was two of the bullets that we will be considering are things that would impact the middle school. So it's really important that middle school people are in this space. So the two blue are our parents broken out by elementary and middle. And then the two green pieces of that pie there are teachers. So the elementary teachers and middle school teachers is a pretty equitable breakout. And then move to building principals, who again are core members of any committee work that we do. And I would strongly, I would be really concerned if we didn't have building principals at the table as we have these conversations. And then the district administrators. And then those smaller pieces of the pie represent some of those other smaller groups that we had in that others category in the other slide. So now I'm going to move to some happy news and some exciting things to share. So this past Friday, I know Kanita was here tonight. We recognized her at the CU Schools Foundation reception for the Local Hero Award. She's pictured there with Dr. Ken Rowland, who was the Urbana Distinguished Alumni Award winner, who is a cancer doctor at Carl. UHS alum Jerry Regal, who runs Regal Labs, was the local business community impact alumni honoree. So congratulations again to Kanita, to Dr. Ken, and to Jerry for their commitment to and service to Urbana schools. So they were really honored to be recognized, and it was a really great event. So congratulations and thank you to CU Schools Foundation for recognizing them. I know Michael's not here tonight, but Michael has, as you know, he is an orator, and he has been out in several district competitions this spring, and he placed second in the Southern Regional Oratorical Contest. He will now represent the district in the finals later this month. So congratulations to Michael. This Saturday, several of us participated. I know Maria Elvira is in that picture with Dr. Franklin and I. And then the picture at the bottom has Dr. Wiemelt. And then we had a large group of students from the Tiger Academy and Freedom Schools who also represented the district at the CU Autism Network Walk and Resource Fair out in Savoy on Saturday. So it was a great event. It was wonderful for our students to see a community come together around supporting students with autism, and as a district we were just happy to be able to be in that space and show our support we saw many of our families there with their students, so it was a great event. Julie Duvall, who was here tonight, is the CUAN president right now, so hats off to Julie. This was a huge event, and yeah, they did a great job. Saturday, I was out also before the CUAN at the inaugural Family Fun Fest at UMS. I know there were a lot of competing things happening on Saturday, the Boneyard. There were several sporting events, so we had students doing soccer and track, and so it was a busy day. But it was a well-attended day, and a lot of fun was had out in the field there at UMS for the LGBTQ first Family Fun Fest. So congratulations to the committee for getting that kicked off. There were we had a lot of community partners there, food trucks. It was a great time, and the weather was great for that. So congratulations to them and to all the people who came out to represent and to demonstrate how welcoming and affirming Urbana School District is to our LGBTQ plus community. So hats off to the group for their planning efforts. As you know, the student ambassador applications are open. They are due on Friday. Interviews are Monday, May 8th at UHS. We're going to miss Parker and Michael, but there are students that are really excited about an opportunity to represent as student ambassadors on the board. So we've been sharing that application. Online registration. So this is something new. We have typically, since COVID, when we started online registration, we have waited until the school year ended before we opened it. But this year, we really want to be thoughtful and get as many families registered as we can this spring. And we have several incentives. So if you saw the superintendent update last week, I talked about some of those incentives. The elementary principals have a lot of fun ideas that they're putting in place to try to get as many especially our elementary families registered before they leave for summer break. It is really hard once everybody goes. We send tons of messages, and it still feels like when it's time in August, we have a large number of families that are not registered. So we're really trying to avoid that and be proactive and keep that from happening. We are going to be offering a tech night on May 10th at UMS. We've been providing tech support in July, but we thought we would front load some of that tech support for people who have legitimate family access issues and are not able to get into the online registration module and do some of the things that they need to do because they forgot their username or their password or any of those things. So we'll be available on May 10th at UMS to support those families that need that help. We've talked about sixth grade night is coming Thursday, April 27th. I know UMS has been promoting that, and they've been having a lot of fifth grade transition meetings to get ready for that. UMS Broadway on Vine. I think we talked about this before. If you've not seen one of the Broadway on Vine, can you go to the next slide, John? Presentations. They're doing Into the Woods. They are a great group of actors and actresses, and they do a phenomenal job. And that is all to credit to our fine arts program. The fact that we have a phenomenal dance and drama program and music program at the elementary level, those students have an opportunity through Broadway and Vine to just continue with being fine artists. And they take that with them to UMS, and then they, of course, go on to the high school. So that is April 20th and April 22nd. And last thing is dates. I've already talked about the online registration. UHS Spring Musical is May 5th through the 7th. And the Thomas Paine Carnival is always a fun event. So, do you want to read all these, or we didn't talk about that?
I can try.
Or we can split them.
Yeah, this is going to take a while. So these are all of our completed FOIAs. First is from Smart Procure for all current employee staff contract information. Another one is for Quia Perkin Williams for a map of the location of the families who are bused out of DPW to other schools due to overcrowding for the 22-23 school year. Mike Anderson for all emails and internal documents that were composed or sent by one of the following and sent to one and or more of the following: Dr. Ivory Tatum, Lori Johnson, Dr. Norton, Marty Stamberg, and Randy Ashman, Piper Harvey, Paul Pulaski, Brenda Carter, Tari Exum, Ann Hall, Robbie Hasanadka, Brian Ogalski, and Laura Orr between October 1st, 2022 through the present day that mention Wiley and one of the following words: HVAC, chiller, chillers, boiler, boilers, heating, cooling, lead times, timeline, radiators, renovation, steam, IGW, architect, engineer, remodeling, reimagining, AC, valve, asbestos, abatement, ventilation, concept planning, roofing, surface, upgrade, remediate, glue dots, electrical, electrical, plumbing, sewer, lighting, windows, plaster, drywall, flooring, construction, reno, containment, contractor, stakeholder bidding, ceiling, tile, addition, MEP, fire protection, life safety, fan coil, hazmat, caulking, glazing, conduit, geothermal, strand, ducting, doors, abate, insulation, inspection, LOI, RFB, RFQ, RFP, remediation, print specs, EPDM, pneumatic, leak, blueprint, compressor, and air handler. From local labs, Vince Espy. Copy of your district's current mission statement and copies of any previous mission statements provided they have changed them in the recent past. Another from local labs, Vince Espy. Copy of your district's current mission statement, UECS. Copies of any previous mission statements provided they have changed in the recent past. And from local labs, copy of your district's current mission statement for King. Copies of any previous mission statements provided they have changed them in the recent past. Rakaya Perkins Williams. List of families that are assigned to DPW but are being bused out to Thomas Paine due to overcrowding. Dodge Construction Network, the awarded contractor and their amount, start and completion dates for Urbana High School band room expansion renovation. Another from Mike Anderson. All emails and internal documents that are composed or sent by one of the following and sent to one or more of the following: Dr. Ivory Tatum, Lori Johnson, Dr. Norton, Marty Stanberg, and Randy Ashman. Piper Harvey between October 1st, 2022 and the present day that mention Wiley and one of the following words: HVAC, chiller, chillers, boiler, boilers, heating, cooling, lead times, timeline, radiators, renovation, steam, IGW, architect, engineer, remodeling, reimagining, AC, valve, asbestos, abatement, ventilation, concept planning, roofing, furnace, upgrade, remediate, glue dots, electrical, plumbing, sewer, lighting, windows, plaster, drywall, flooring, construction, reno, containment, contractor, stakeholder, bidding, ceiling, tile, addition, MEP, fire protection, life safety, fan coil, hazmat, caulking, glazing, conduit, geothermal, strand, ducting, doors, abate, insulation, inspection, LOI, RFB, RFQ, RFP, remediation, prints, specs, EPDM, pneumatic leak, blueprint, compressor, and air handler. Now it's time for our board report. So here's an opportunity for us to revisit the discussion and composition of the Facilities Planning Committee. I wanted to give the board an opportunity to publicly discuss this and provide feedback to administration.
So just a question about these numbers, and that is, of the, it was like 40 applications, I guess, or was it 41?
41?
41? Is there enough people, like did 2 people from King apply? Did 2 people from Thomas Paine apply? Like I can't imagine if you have 41 that you'd fit all those categories.
So we have a lot of people who applied who fit multiple categories. So they have a kid at King, at middle school, and at high school. There were a couple of people who applied who were only just a Wiley or maybe just a Thomas Paine, but I would say the majority of the applicants crossed several levels.
I was asking that because then if there's an empty slot,
Yeah.
then what happens to the empty slot?
Yeah, so if we did not, so that is a clear question, so thank you, yes. So if there were not a parent from King, then if the board would like me to slide a Wiley person into that space, I mean, that is something we could talk about. But we didn't make any decisions about that until we see how the scoring comes out.
Anyone else?
Does that answer your question? Okay, all right.
Yeah, I just was kind of curious. I know you reviewed a couple of the former committees that had
Yep.
been made in the past. I was just kind of wondering if you could explain, if you know, I'm assuming not all of those committees directly had to do with like Thomas Paine renovation or Leola renovation or, DPW, and how those committee, like,
The first and the third committee were assessing, basically ranking all of the potential projects the district might take on over the next 20 years for the first committee and 10 years for the second committee.
okay, so for example, the Thomas Paine renovation committee, what was the percentage of like Thomas Paine families versus?
There
wasn't
wasn't a
a
Thomas
Thomas-
Paine
those were
reservation.
all district.
It was,
Okay,
it was,
so there was
it
just
was.
like
here-
feedback or?
Exactly. Here are all the potential projects the district might take on. There were
Okay.
projects at the middle school. There was finishing all of the remodeling for the elementary schools. And it's basically ranking them in priority order. That's what
And
that
so
second.
then when your school came up, right, then
It was
like-
really interesting. I was a member of one of those committees. There was very little USD 116 voice on most of those committees. Most of the people were not even stakeholders in our district.
Okay.
So realtors, developers, city employees.
Yeah, Carl Gannett from
Yeah.
MTD was on
Sure.
one of them.
That was why I shared that, because I just
Yeah,
thought that was kind
I'm
of
kind of
a
curious.
different take on it, but yep.
I guess my other question is, and again, correct me if I'm wrong in the interpretation, the second slide, I believe, where you were listing like co-chairs and other,
The invited people who did not.
right, those were invited, not
They did not.
applied.
Yep.
Are either of the co-chairs Wiley parents?
No.
And is that something, can we have a co-chair as a Wiley parent? Like,
I'm
who's
gonna leave
selecting
that?
that?
Up to you guys because I don't know that anybody in that particular group asked to be a co-chair.
I think
Um,
we have a volunteer, but I don't know. Shit. I'm just saying, I think that would maybe better mitigate some of the tension if the makeup is, selected from this survey, like the people who applied, you have an opportunity to slot in other roles, that voice, and I think that would go a long way.
I think all the people that we have talked to about being co-chairs have been people who have not been as involved in the process, who have been neutral, and have not been coming and sharing a very one-sided opinion about it. And my perspective, and again, this is a board charge committee, so you guys can change that, is that our co-chairs should be people who are neutral and have not already made an opinion, don't already have an opinion about the direction that the committee should go.
And I think that is fair, and I think that's but I also would argue that, like, we're loading it with a lot of voices, and I think it's going to be challenging, but I think it's important. But I also think by inviting the people that are expressing the most concern and giving them opportunities to know more, which is what they would like, I think you are setting yourself up for more success in having the outcome be, well, better received, because that voice then becomes the sounding board for the larger community.
Yeah.
And again, I think, have you ever been on a district-wide committee, Laura? Maybe as your time when you were at Leo.
Yeah, I mean,
I just want to say also, committee work is not easy. It's really hard. And when you put this many voices in a room, and you have people who have very strong opinions, it's hard when you're in a space. And just thinking about some of the people that I know who have applied, we don't want to diminish other people's voices. And when you have voices that tend to overpower, that is why we have people who drop off committees, or they stop coming, or they are in the space and feel like, why am I here if you know I'm not able to be heard? So I think that is that could happen. I don't know if it would, and again, crystal ball moment, we don't know until we get to that space. But that is something I think we would have to consider.
I will add to what Laura just said is if you had someone like Mike Anderson as a co-chair, then whatever the committee decides, there's buy-in and they feel like they have their say. If it's a totally chosen committee, as it sounds like it's potentially going to be, then it's going to be us versus them. So that is, if you want the Wiley community to be satisfied, they need to have somebody as the co-chair. And the point of co-chairs is that the other person can keep that person in check. So that's why there's not a single chair. So if there was a single chair as Mike Anderson, I could see what you're saying, that he's going to silence all the administrator voices when they talk. He'll just cut them off and say, you can't talk anymore. That's possible, but that's why you have a co-chair. So if you have...
I would concur with that, frankly. I mean, I think if having somebody from Wiley as a co-chair, I think would help and not hurt, making sure that discussions and interactions are moderated, frankly. As long as the person chosen really understands that the purpose of this committee is to make a decision for the entire district. I mean, I know it adversely impacts Wiley. I mean, it not adversely, it disproportionately affects the Wiley community. And as a result, I do think they should have a larger voice in the discussion. They should, in terms of like a plurality. But, let's see, but it's important that people understand this is a decision that affects the entire district for a very, very long time.
I mean, I guess I would also just advocate, like, in process. I know that, yes, I mean, committees are complicated because humans are complicated, but, like, I also think, like, you could try to, right, you're going to probably have some kind of sub breakout groups or some sort of breakout at some points within this, right? So, I mean, I think that, like, that will also inform and allow for, hopefully, people to feel empowered to speak in smaller platforms. Some of those platforms being without admin in the space, some of them being maybe with, I mean, I think you have to kind of, you're going to have to be creative and thoughtful, but I also still think that, like, within that, yes, in inviting, people to the table that are asking to be there, I think they're going to do the work, and I think that they're going to be dedicated, and that's also what you want in a committee.
Well, I would hope out of all the 41 people who signed up, they signed up because they want to do the work and they want to do what's best for the entire district, which was basically one of the questions that we asked in the survey is, do you feel that you can represent the entire district and be a good listener and make decisions that you may not agree with, basically. that's part of being on a committee.
And I mean, and all committees suffer from attrition for various reasons,
Yes.
regardless of some of the things we're talking about. But I do think, like, yeah, I guess, I know I don't have a crystal ball, but I strongly feel that people in the room would stay and remain dedicated to the process.
And we're gonna set norms at the very beginning, which is a standard for all district committees that we do. And one of the co-chair responsibilities will be to make sure that all members are following our norms. Because Ravi's right, there is very much an us versus them mentality in the district at the elementary level and part of this committee that has been that has grown through these conversations. So we will have to have some healthy bonding at the beginning, which will be a challenge too. So.
I was just going to add, as a co-chair, I'm sure Paul will attest to, that it is a huge, huge time commitment. And oftentimes people get into these committee meetings, and sometimes even if you miss one, you're missing out on a lot. And it's hard to pick up the meeting that you missed, you know. So I think, yeah, I mean, it's a huge time commitment. Paul could tell you from the committees he's been on before, and I was on one of them at the very beginning when I first got on the board. We met quite frequently, and everybody's voice was heard, but in the end, you have to go in and have a neutral idea and be open to different things. Because if you go in with a strong feeling, which is sometimes hard, you have to be able to have the listening skills to listen to all the sides, because it does affect the whole district, not just one building or two buildings. What the facility is deciding on affects the whole district.
I just want to reiterate a point that Dr. Aubrey Tatum made. Yes, the chairs do put in a lot of work, but there is so much work for committee that happens outside of the committee meeting hours. The last committee we had to do facilities, for example, we just tons and tons of collected data and paperwork that were done outside of that time by Dr. Owen's administrative team at that point, and it really is essential for if the work the committee is going to get done, especially on the timetable we're looking at now, that there has to be administrative involvement. Just because so much has to go on during 9 to 5 when this committee is not meeting.
So, observation or questions? The invited board members, are those people who are continuing currently?
I've asked the 3 board members, the new people, when we I've had one-on-one meetings with them, and we asked them during their board orientation. So we don't have commitments yet. So.
Okay, so it was an open invitation that has not been filled.
Open invitation that has not been filled, except the only person who has said they are not interested is Paul.
Okay. My other comment is 5 administrators labeled as ex officio, 6 not, and then the board members, I think, by default are ex officio on a committee because they're going to vote here.
Oh, I should have put ex officio.
Yeah, so just making sure that's clear.
Yes,
but
yes.
The distinction between those, like the building principals as voting members makes tremendous sense to me. I think building principals, I mean, they're the boots on the ground people. They're in the buildings. They know as much as anybody. Some of the people that you listed as being voting, and I don't want to call out names, but are slightly puzzling to me given the type of work that they do relative to what would be a voting member. You know, for example, communications, like super important role, slightly puzzled why that would be a voting administrator on facilities. So I'm wondering why have district central office as voting members on this committee? If that is the will of the board, then making sure that votes are very transparent about, broken down by role as best we can, parent votes versus administrator votes,
Sure.
sort of thing. So,
But administrators can also be objective, and they have their own mind, and they vote based on the data and what they see as the best option. So I think our district administrators who might be voting can also do that.
yeah, it wasn't an indictment of them not being able to be objective. It's thinking about the purpose of the committee and that person being invited because their role is incredibly relevant to this particular committee, as opposed to every director is on the committee regardless of what they
So
do.
not every director is on the committee. It is it is only 6.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I don't know who those people are necessarily, but
Yep.
I'm just suggesting that we think about under what conditions central office should be voting here versus having a voice at the table more regularly. And actually the people who have the voices here we've decided are not voting, but perhaps they are the people who should be voting. I don't really know the answer. I just don't quite get the distinction why 5 get to vote and 6 don't. And on what basis do we decide
Well,
who votes and who
honestly, the
doesn't?
5 that are here in this space are not voting because we don't want to be accused of being unethical and not being transparent. So John Gutzmer is not voting, but should John Gutzmer be voting? He probably should, because he's one of the people who sees every little piece of data that comes through the district, but he's not going to vote because it makes it a more, for optics purposes, we don't want to be accused of doing something that we shouldn't be doing. So the
Yeah.
5 people in this room who are going to probably be doing most of the work are not going to be voting.
And I'll speak for myself, I can't speak for everybody, but some of the public comment and emails and vitriol, like, I thought it was best for me, and we kind of discussed as a group, if we just removed ourselves from that part. There's, I think, a lot of work that they probably want us in the room for, but just because of the kind of heightened emotional nature of this, we kind of decided to remove ourselves from that.
Great. Anybody else like to chime in real quick?
I'm sorry if you already addressed this, but could you just remind me, the UEA representatives, would they be part of their own exec team, or could it be just any teacher who is
Yeah.
a member of UEA
So,
or staff member?
how we handle UEA representatives is they choose the
Okay.
teachers, not,
Okay.
so that is why they are not completing the survey.
Yeah.
Because when they're on committees, they are representing the UEA and thinking about our contract and
Yep.
the impact and the bargaining impacts and implications for anything that we might be discussing. So the UEA does their own survey and elicits their own volunteers. So the UEA people are not actually, actually one of them is from Wiley, a Wiley teacher. But they are not from the UEA leadership team.
Right.
They are chosen and their names are submitted from the UEA.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, that was a good question. I should have said that.
Right.
And they will just be on whatever, like as we break in groups, they will function on the committee just like anyone else. But they're there because they were chosen by the UEA to be there.
Does Tori have a question? Okay. All right. So if the way I'm reading these numbers, right, so we have 60 total committee members, but 7 of them are ex officio, right? So we're left with 53 voting
Yeah.
members.
And again, we can have more board members. I just defaulted to 2 because 2 is kind of
It-
our natural default. But because these are public meetings, if there are other board members that would like to be, I would ask that board members not just pick and choose. I'm gonna of course, any board member could come and watch because it's a public meeting. But if you're going to be on the committee, we ask that you completely be on the committee and you come to all, you're in all the meeting spaces. Like Brenda said, it's really hard if you just, I'll come to this one or that one, and you will miss a lot. But we could have more than 2. So, but yes, as it is fleshed out right now, it would be -7 people voting, yes.
So 53. My recommendation, frankly, would be to add 2 more parents from Wiley. To give them more, at least 2 more. Since we had, the 2 board members aren't voting, so that would take us back to 55. I think I said that already. I mean, I agreed with, no. Oh, I think that it would strengthen, so the purpose of this committee, right, is to really get the districts, by the district, the city's opinion and recommendation on this question. The last thing we want to do is to do all this work for a committee and give them the trust, give them the ability to bring a recommendation to the board, but have the composition of the committee be such that the recommendation is called into question because of the composition of the committee. Then that's a situation where the next board is going to come in and probably disregard it because they don't respect how the process was done. So I think it's imperative for this committee to be viable, that we heed some of these voices that are talking to us and expand the role, if possible, of including all voices in this matter. So yeah, I would like to see somebody from the Wiley committee as a co-chair as well, myself.
Anything else? Did Tori have anything else? Okay, thank you. I'll go back. We'll wait until we get all the responses. And now that I think about it, there might have been somebody in there, maybe one or two, who said they would be willing to co-chair. So we'll go back and look at that.
So we're in board reports. Does anybody else have a board report?
I have a quick shout out. I was at Thomas Paine a couple of days ago, and there's a rock star, Mr. Williams, who does safety patrol, and he had this ceremony for these kids who he has an interview process. They put together applications. He teaches them like real job skills, marches them across the stage, pins them, all with so much enthusiasm. It was one of the coolest things. So shout out to Mr. Williams at Thomas Paine for doing something that is like really a life skill. They don't always, the kids maybe don't know what they're getting from him, but he's awesome.
Any other board reports? I just want to take this opportunity to thank the outgoing board members for their dedicated service. Brenda for 16 years, but all of you for however long you've been on the board. Your work is so appreciated here. It's a personal thank you.
We'll do that at the next meeting.
Yeah,
Oh,
I know, but
I was gonna say, don't make me look bad like we forgot that or something.
no, I know it's going to happen officially when the county clerk certifies the election. But I still want to do it now. All right. It's a late night. We got still more work to do. So the chair would entertain a call to go into executive session for basically personnel matters, but what we're doing is superintendent evaluation and discussing contract situation with the superintendent.
I would move, but with a,
And there is potential for action after the meeting.
I would move with a 5-minute recess beforehand.
It's been moved. Has it been seconded?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Member Hasnadka?
Yes.
Member Hall?
Yes.
Member Orr?
Yes.
Member Ogalski?
Yes.
Member Carter votes yes. Vice President Exum?
Yes.
President Pulaski?
Yes, a 5-minute recess, and then we'll be in closed session. Potentially,
Thank you.
and we're going to enter open session afterwards. No, we'll
When we are discussing it, you guys can stay in my room and then I'll come out. I'll go find, I can sit in Angela's office or someplace. Yes.